Aboard a grand ship navigating a frozen sea, the woman now known as Rita Scrine looks out at the water. She observes that the sea is still blue, a familiar sight even in this strange, new world. Her gloved hand tightens on the wooden railing as a wave of uncertainty washes over her. She wonders what will become of her from now on, admitting to herself that she has no idea. This internal questioning is shattered when her maid, Tilda, calls out, "Rita-sama." Startled, she flinches, then quickly reminds herself of her new identity, Rita Scrine, daughter of the Duke. She stammers out a reply, caught off guard. Her mind flashes back to about 2 weeks ago. She was no longer Yano Kane, but the memory remains of her collapsing onto her bed in her old apartment, letting out a long, weary sigh. She recalls the source of her exhaustion, being unjustly scolded by her boss over the phone for a mistake her junior colleague made, all while she was supposed to be on vacation. The memory of the utter misery of that moment is still vivid. That misery was compounded during a girl's night out. Her friend had pointed out that she was still single, with one declaring it the full combo, 28 years old, unmarried, and no boyfriend. Another friend had warned that she'd be in trouble if she didn't find a man soon. Returning to the present, she gently holds the small, fox-like creature, Foxy. She muses aloud, wondering if thinking about love might help her remember something important, but quickly dismisses the thought, resigning herself that it can't be helped. Her thoughts drift to a specific memory of love, Hashina Hiroto-kun, the one she loved. She vividly recalls the moment he confessed, his face flushed as he said, "I like you, Yano-san." In that instant, she had been so happy. The memory, however, is not entirely sweet. A flicker of hesitation crosses her face in the present as she recalls there was a but that followed that happy moment. The reason for her hesitation becomes clear as the memory continues. Immediately after his confession, Hashina had apologized. As she stood there, only able to say, "I see," he had put on a strained smile, stating he was just glad he got to tell her how he felt. He transferred schools shortly after that day, and Yano Kane never saw him again. As she holds her small fox companion, she reflects that even though she knows it's her own fault, she has never been able to move on from that memory. As she wonders what Hashina-kun is doing right now, a glowing, intricate sigil suddenly appears beneath her feet. She cries out in surprise, wishing she could go back to that day and redo everything, just as the light intensifies. The light flares, becoming blindingly bright. She shields her eyes, completely engulfed, questioning what is happening to her. The brilliance fades, revealing an opulent room. Before her stand a stern-looking older man and a young woman who is her exact double. The man addresses her, identifying her as the girl who will stand in for his daughter. Yano Kane is stunned, wondering if she heard his voice, as she is certain she didn't speak. The young woman, her doppelganger, gently chides the man, calling him father and insisting they introduce themselves properly. With a warm smile, she states that she is Rita Scrine. The man then introduces himself as Zach, Rita's father, and explains that they are in a mansion belonging to the Scrine family. Hearing these names, Yano Kane's mind goes completely blank, unable to process who these people are. Rita Scrine then turns to her and asks for a name. Yano Kane stammers out her own name, Yano Kane. Rita finds the name unique and remarks that Yano Kane looks exactly like her, asking if she can call her Kane. The mention of a Duke title finally registers in Yano's mind, adding to her confusion. Her thoughts race as she tries to make sense of her surroundings. She questions how she ended up in this lavish hall, realizing that the clothing and titles suggest she has been transported to a completely different era. As she grapples with this impossible reality, Rita Scrine cheerfully explains that she summoned Yano Kane from another world using magic, precisely because they look identical. She gestures to a silent, hooded figure, introducing them as their mage. The words magic and another world hit Yano Kane with the force of a physical blow. The revelation is too much. Overwhelmed by the absurdity of it all, Yano Kane feels her strength leave her, collapsing forward as she declares she can't keep up. Rita rushes to her side, asking if she is all right. She awakens to the same stern face, her mind reeling. "So then, why was I summoned?" she asks, her voice trembling. The Duke states the purpose plainly. She is to take Rita's place and marry King Eugene. The declaration leaves her utterly speechless, her mind unable to process the absurd demand. Her confusion gives way to frantic protest. She argues that even if they look identical, she was raised as a commoner. Besides, shouldn't marrying a king be a good thing for a noblewoman? The Duke's expression hardens, retorting that he would never resort to such measures if it weren't for the one they call the Cruel Wolf. The ominous title hangs in the air. He clarifies that the Cruel Wolf is none other than the young ruler of Fiederics, King Eugene Aistelot, a ruthless tyrant. The revelation sends a chill down her spine. As she tries to absorb this terrifying new reality, Rita herself steps forward. She apologizes to Kane, explaining that the whole affair took them by surprise. Contradicting her father, Rita insists that King Eugene is a good ruler who puts his country first, and that the Duke's drastic actions were born from concern for her own feelings. The Duke then pulls his daughter into a comforting embrace. Over his shoulder, Rita continues her plea to Kane, her voice thick with emotion. She confesses that it's embarrassing to admit, but she has never been in love. If she marries the king now, she fears she will never know what it feels like to truly love someone. Faced with this desperate, personal appeal, Kane makes her own. "Please send me back," she begs. The Duke's expression turns to stone. "I'm sorry, but I cannot do this," he states, his voice devoid of warmth. "So you'll take Rita's place." The finality of his words shatters her last hope. She collapses to her knees, the truth of her situation crashing down upon her. The magic that brought her here is a one-way passage. They can summon people from other worlds, but they possess no means to send them back. As she remains on the floor, utterly broken, the Duke looms over her, his face a mask of grim determination. He delivers a chilling ultimatum. "If you refuse, I can't guarantee your safety." But then, Rita kneels down to meet her gaze, her expression one of desperate sincerity. She begs for just a little while, a little more time, until she can find someone to truly love. Overwhelmed by the earnest plea and the impossible circumstances, Kane realizes she has no choice. Seeing her resignation, Rita makes a solemn vow. "I promise I'll find a way to send you back." Her thoughts are interrupted by the servant, Tilda, who addresses her as Rita's Sama. Tilda gently admonishes her, stating that as a noblewoman from a prestigious family, she cannot appear so distracted in public. Startled by the correction, she quickly apologizes. Tilda's expression then softens. With a small, resigned laugh, she concedes that perhaps it can't be helped. After all, she notes, Rita is about to marry King Eugene, the man known as the Cruel Wolf. According to Duke Scrine, the young king is known to be both cold and cruel. He sits upon his throne, a figure of shadowed authority in the Grand Hall. Meanwhile, as the moment of the meeting approached, Tilda offered some final words of encouragement. She reminded the anxious young woman, now posing as Rita, that she had done her best to teach her how to act as a duke's daughter over the past 2 weeks and would be there to back her up. Rita tearfully acknowledged her maid's support, reflecting that the duke must be desperate to avoid marrying his real daughter to the king, a fact Tilda confirmed was quite obvious. Despite the reassurance, she couldn't shake her unease, reminding herself that this was just a job and that she would run if things became dangerous, a thought she quickly dismissed as a joke. Her anxiety mounted as she was finally led down a long, ornate corridor and asked by Tilda to wait before the final doors. Beyond this door, King Eugene was waiting. His expression was impassive, his gaze distant and cold as he stood in the silent chamber. She entered and performed a deep curtsy, introducing herself as Rita Scrine, eldest daughter of the Duke. She formally stated it was an honor to meet His Majesty, King Eugene Aistalot. As she began to express her hopes for their marriage, he cut her short with a simple command, "Raise your head." He closed the distance between them in an instant, his gloved hand tilting her chin upwards. The sudden, intimate gesture forced her to meet his intense gaze, leaving her startled. His eyes narrowed slightly. He observed that for someone who came to marry him, she was acting quite cold and formal, then directly asked if she felt guilty about something. A wave of panic washed over her. Had he already found out? She hastily denied it, insisting she was merely elated to finally meet him. He continued to study her face, murmuring that she really did resemble her, even down to her voice. As she internally questioned if her act was convincing, he startled her by abruptly announcing that he had prepared a room for her. He then turned his back on her, stating plainly that neither of them wanted this marriage, but they must go through the necessary formalities. He dismissed her, saying they would talk more tomorrow. As the king left, Tilda reappeared to show her to her assigned room. She was told to rest, and that she would receive a tour of the castle now. She throws herself onto the bed, the terror from her meeting with the king still fresh. Burying her face in the pillows, she thinks back on the ordeal, her body trembling. Sleep offers no comfort. Though she was told to rest, a desperate need for something familiar drives her to search through her belongings. Her eyes light up as she finds what she was looking for, her smartphone. Clutching the phone and a small, stuffed fox from her world, a wave of relief washes over her. "Foxy," she whispers, hugging the plush toy. The simple objects feel like an anchor. The comfort is fleeting. As she sits, the king's words echo in her mind. She wonders who he was referring to when he said she resembled her, and feels a growing anxiety about her ability to maintain the deception. She decides she must find out more tomorrow. The thought of facing him again fills her with a quiet dread. "I don't want to see him tomorrow," she mutters aloud to herself, completely unaware that she is no longer alone in the room. From directly behind her, a cold voice cuts through the silence. "You don't want to see me, huh?" King Eugene leans in, his tone dangerously low. That's quite the remark. She flinches, startled by his sudden appearance. "And no," she stammers, clutching her phone. She frantically tries to think of an excuse, reasoning that there is nothing strange about a fiancé checking up on her future husband. Her frantic thoughts are cut short as the king's hand darts out, snatching the phone from her grasp. "Where did you get this?" he demands, his voice sharp. A nearby guard cries out in alarm. "Lady Rita." Panic seizes her as the screen lights up, revealing her lock screen, a photograph of herself as Yano Kane, smiling alongside her mother. Her blood runs cold. It's over, she thinks in terror. He's going to kill me. As her world seems to crumble, a single, desperate thought surfaces, a name that represents her only remaining connection to home. Foxy. She recoils, her eyes wide with shock. The king's words from moments before echo in her mind. He had mentioned Foxy. The impossibility of it forces a panicked question from her lips, her voice trembling with disbelief. Huh. You know Foxy. Ignoring her frantic outburst, the king's voice cuts through her confusion, cold and certain. He makes a direct accusation. You're not Lady Rita Scrine, are you? The statement hangs in the air, leaving her stunned and speechless. He leans in closer, his presence overwhelming as he pins her with an intense gaze. Tell me your real name, he demands. As she stammers, unable to find the words, he presses again, his voice sharp. Tell me. Panic floods her mind. She knows there is no way she can tell him the truth. Her resolve crumbles under the weight of his interrogation. With tears welling in her eyes, she finally whispers the name she thought she had left behind forever, Yano Kane. Upon hearing the name, his intense demeanor shifts. He brings a hand to his face, a quiet, contemplative sound escaping him as he seems to process the revelation. Yano can only watch, utterly bewildered by his strange, silent reaction. He lowers his hand slightly, his gaze meeting hers again, but the coldness is gone. A hint of uncertainty, perhaps even vulnerability, colors his voice as he asks, Are you really? As she hesitates, he gently takes her hand in his. The unexpected tenderness of a gesture sends a jolt through her. Her mind, once certain of her captor's identity, now floods with doubt. King Eugene, she thinks, the name no longer fitting the man before her. In that moment, the oppressive, shadowy aura surrounding him dissolves. The face that emerges from the darkness is not the cruel king she feared, but one she knows intimately from her past. He looks directly at her, his expression soft, and speaks a name that shatters her reality. It's me, Hashina Hiroto. Yano can only stare, her mind blank with utter shock. Yano Kane reflects on her perilous situation. Summoned to another world, her purpose was to serve as a body double for Duke Scrine's daughter, Rita. This deception was necessary for her to fulfill her ultimate role, to marry the man known as the Cruel Wolf, King Eugene Aistelot, all while keeping her true identity a secret. However, just as she believed her life was forfeit, the king saw through her facade instantly. Leaning close, his voice was low as he confronted her directly, stating with certainty that she was not Rita Scrine. But instead of the expected execution, the man revealed an identity that shattered her reality. He announced himself not as the king, but as Hashina Hiroto. The name, a relic from her past life, leaves Yano completely stunned, her eyes wide with disbelief. He speaks her name with a gentle familiarity, Yano-san, and a flicker of concern crosses his face as he asks if she is all right. The combination of his name and her own on his lips is too much, and she can only stammer out his name in return, her mind reeling. Finding her voice, she questions him, flustered. She demands to know if he is truly the Hashina Hiroto she knew from Akina High School. Unable to reconcile the boy from her memories with the king standing before her, he confirms it without hesitation. He is indeed that Hashina Hiroto. He gestures towards his own face, telling her to look closely, as if to prove that the person she remembers is still there. The confirmation leaves her utterly speechless, the world seeming to tilt on its axis as she stares at him. To further prove his identity, he brings up a shared memory from their second year of high school, how they were on the beautification committee together and what a pain it was to clean the garden in the fall. Yano quietly agrees, the specific detail jogging her memory. He provides one final, irrefutable piece of evidence, asking about the teacher nicknamed Tabison, who is known for his awful puns. The memory is so specific, so personal, that all doubt vanishes from Yano's mind. It truly is him, Hashina-kun, the boy she loved. Seeing her recognition, he asks if she believes him now. With his identity established, he turns the tables. He asks why she is here, pretending to be a noble's daughter. He then offers a wry apology, reminding her that this strange land isn't even their world to begin with. She takes a breath to answer his question, beginning to explain that it is a long story. Hashina listens, his gaze fixed on a point beyond her as he quietly acknowledges her words. Her explanation elicits a shocked gasp from her. As she reels, Hashina covers his mouth, a look of dawning horror on his face. He realizes that this means her current predicament is his fault and offers a heartfelt apology. He continues to insist that it is his fault, but she quickly waves her hands in dismissal, telling him not to worry. She admits she had no idea he had also been summoned to this world, but he remains firm in his conviction. His guilt culminates in a deep, formal bow as he apologizes once more. Completely flustered, Yano protests, telling him that as the king of a country, he cannot simply apologize so easily. He straightens up, his expression hardening as he concedes her point. Yano is taken aback, noticing how in an instant he shed his personal distress and reverted to the imposing demeanor of a king. Despite his regal composure, his heart pounds violently within his chest. Meanwhile, Yano reflects on her own racing heart. She had been terrified when she first heard tales of the cruel king, but now, knowing it is Hashina, her heart beats fast for an entirely different reason. Her flustered state does not go unnoticed. Hashina calls out to her, asking if she is all right. Startled from her thoughts, she stammers out a flustered confirmation. Regaining her composure, she turns the questioning back to him, asking how he ended up in this world and if he was summoned like she was. Before he can answer, she prepares to tell her own story, cautioning him not to be startled. He looks away, his expression unreadable. He confirms he wasn't summoned, then delivers a shocking revelation that stops her cold. He died. Hashina elaborates on his shocking statement, explaining that he died in a terrible car accident while with his parents. He then reveals that he was reincarnated in this world, taking on the identity of Eugene Aistelot. The revelation leaves Yano reeling. Standing with her back to him, she struggles to process the information, her mind repeating the unbelievable fact. Hashina Koen had died. She turns, her hand covering her mouth in sorrow. Her eyes well up as she whispers that she had no idea, horrified to think he had perished in an accident. Seeing her distress, Hashina attempts to console her. He points out that it happened after he transferred schools, and since they weren't in the same class and had no mutual friends, it was natural she never found out. He insists it is not something she should worry about. His words, however, only deepen her sense of guilt. She realizes with a sickening feeling that if she hadn't been summoned to this world, she would have lived her entire life ignorant of his death. The thought is awful, and her hand clenches into a tight fist. He urges her not to be so downcast, stating he didn't tell her to make her sad. He admits his initial confusion, but explains that he is now Eugene Aistelot. Having inherited the body's memories, he has embraced his new life and duties as a royal, finding that his past memories only make his existence in the castle more exciting. His words spark a memory within Yano, taking her back to their school days. She recalls the beautification committee, where it was clear that none of the students wanted to be there, all except for one. She remembers Hashina's simple logic. Since he had to be there anyway, he might as well do his best. Inspired, she had started giving it her all too. In the present, she looks at him with renewed admiration and tells him he's amazing. His expression shifts back to the present matter. He dismisses her praise as untrue, acknowledging only that they have now realized they know each other from past life. He then brings up the immediate problem. He still has to decide how to handle her pretending to be a noble. Yano looks up, agreeing. Now that they understand each other's situations, she knows they must figure out what to do next. She lowers her gaze, her mind racing. He couldn't possibly let an outsider like her stay in his castle indefinitely. Perhaps he could introduce her to some work, giving her a way to survive here. As she contemplates this, Hashina's voice cuts through her thoughts, calling her by her old name, Yano-san. Her head snaps up, her eyes wide with surprise as she looks at the king seated across from her. He then makes a stunning offer. He guarantees her safety and promises to search for a way for her to return home. Furthermore, he declares that if she does not wish for this marriage, he will call it off and handle the negotiations with the Scrine family himself. She turns her head, a blush dusting her cheeks as she processes his words. He was treating her far better than she had anticipated. But, she begins, her voice trailing off. If you're okay with it, then. Her resolve hardens. Of course, she would be happy to marry the person she loves, but she realizes she probably can't avoid marrying someone. As this thought solidifies, Hashina leans forward slightly, a flicker of concern in his eyes. He asks if she refuses this marriage. Does that mean she will marry someone else? Rita considers her impossible choice, her eyes downcast. She wants to go home, but if she does, Hashina Koen won't be there. Yet staying means she'll have to marry someone else. She asks for time to think. The man before her, King Eugene, simply says it's okay, thanking her for confiding in him so suddenly. He leans in closer, his voice soft as he promises that no matter what she decides, he will always be on her side. Startled by his declaration, she can only stare as he moves towards her, wondering what is happening. His proximity triggers a memory of the person she has always loved. A vision of Hashina's gentle face fills her mind, a reminder of the one she thought she had finally found again. The memory fades, leaving her alone and overwhelmed. She clutches her head, torn. She cannot bring herself to abandon everything, but the thought of returning to a world without him is just as unbearable. As she wrestles with her turmoil, a man's voice cuts through her thoughts. He introduces himself as Ilbert Landry, her new tutor, appointed by the king's orders. He explains that as a noble lady new to the area, there must be local matters she is unaware of. Rita, caught off guard, can only stammer her assent. He flashes a dazzling smile, taking her hand and suggesting they get along, familiarly calling her Rita-chan. She is visibly taken aback by his flashy and forward demeanor. Later, alone in his study, Ilbert lets out a long sigh. He reflects on the unbelievable reality that he has been reunited with Yano-san in this world. He recalls seeing Rita Scrine at a party and, knowing she was a summoned person who couldn't refuse marriage to a high noble, chose her. He knows his actions were selfish, choosing her only because she looked just like Yano-san. Yet, he admits to himself that he can't help but feel happy about this situation, even as he acknowledges that this makes him the worst kind of person. He leans over his desk, tormented. Yano-san was his first love. He wonders just how many years have passed in her world since he made his confession to her. Straightening up, his expression hardens with resolve. No matter what Yano-san chooses to do, he makes a silent vow. He will keep her safe. His resolve was rooted in a painful past, a time symbolized by a shattered flip phone lying in darkness next to the small fox, Foxy, a relic of the person he once was. He sat in a carriage, lost in thought, replaying the memory of his rejection. He had been forced to transfer schools afterward and never even got the chance to speak with her again. He recalled the exact moment it all went wrong. From the moment she said, "I am sorry," the situation became unbearably awkward. Afraid of being hurt further, he ran away and never spoke to her again before he left. Staring out the window at the passing scenery, he chided himself. Thinking about it now, he realized he should have just moved on. His gaze dropped to his own phone. He knew it was too late, but a small part of him still considered working on himself a little, just in case. He allowed himself to wonder what might happen if she were to change her mind. But the flicker of hope was quickly extinguished by self-consciousness as he worried that his hair was a mess. Elsewhere, in a book-lined study, another young man with dark, unkempt hair was startled from his thoughts by a sudden knock on the door. He flinched, calling out for his father. When the door opened, he looked up in surprise. It wasn't his father who stood there, but a familiar figure. It was Ilbert. In a different room, a charismatic young man with long, light-colored hair greeted a visitor with a dazzling smile, welcoming them inside. The young man from the study was now with this person, whom he considered his one and only childhood friend. The friend immediately noticed his disheveled state, asking what happened to his hair, but he quickly dismissed the question, insisting it was nothing. Ilbert, seen in profile, admits he couldn't resist visiting Rita that day. His companion, a light-haired man, greets him with a wry smile, reminding him that he was explicitly told to come the following day. The companion internally remarks on how difficult Ilbert is to understand. Ilbert reacts with a jolt of surprise to the reminder. His companion, however, simply looks on with a knowing, amused expression. The companion elaborates on his own presence, explaining that since Ilbert was assigned as Rita's tutor, he felt it necessary to conduct a preliminary inspection. He justifies this by stating his authority as a member of the National Research Agency in Parliament. Ilbert snaps at him to shut up. Unperturbed, the companion leans in closer, observing that Ilbert has been noticeably gloomy since leaving the girl's room and pointedly asks if something happened between them. He presses his advantage, directly asking Ilbert if he has fallen in love with Rita. In response, Ilbert turns away, his face cast in shadow, remaining completely silent. His companion interprets the silence as a clear admission. He realizes with amusement that his probing question has hit the mark yet again. Ilbert remains with his back turned, visibly flustered by the accurate deduction. He finally breaks his silence, not to answer directly, but to state that his feelings are not so simple as love. He curtly instructs his companion to simply do his job, declaring that is all that matters. The companion offers a casual, okay. Elsewhere, Rita gazes out a sunlit window, her expression wistful. A quiet thought surfaces, she just wants to be happy. In a different location, as if hearing her wish, Ilbert's own internal thoughts are revealed. He, too, wants her to be happy, a desire he feels from the bottom of his heart. Elsewhere, under the same full moon, Rita stands before a large window, her back to the room. She gazes out into the night, lost in thought, reflecting on her own desires. She concludes that she could never ask for happiness for herself, reasoning that there must be a limit to how greedy one can be. With a weary expression, Rita listens as Ilbert Landry makes a solemn declaration, vowing to take responsibility. The weight of his words hangs in the air as she lets out a sigh of exhaustion. His mind races, replaying the shocking revelations. He had only just found out yesterday that King Eugene is Hashinakun, and now there's the matter of the marriage to contend with. The next morning, Rita sits on the edge of her bed, her mind still reeling. It is all too much to accept in a single night. Her maid, Tilda, enters the room, offering a polite good morning and announcing her intention to assist with dressing. Rita returns the greeting, though her thoughts are a whirlwind. As Tilda brushes her long hair, Rita reflects on the strangeness of it all. On top of learning that Hashina Cohen is no longer in her world, she finds it odd to have someone else dress her at her age. Despite the mental turmoil, she feels physically rejuvenated. A startling realization dawns on her. She was 28 when summoned, but for some reason, she is now 10 years younger. The summoning magic has de-aged her, leaving her with skin so smooth and firm that she was shocked when she first saw her reflection. Her reverie is broken as Tilda finishes her work. Rita expresses surprise, asking if she is already done. Tilda, noticing her client's distracted state, asks if something is wrong or uncomfortable, offering to redo her work. Rita quickly dismisses the concern with a nervous laugh, internally marveling at how frighteningly fast she's adapting to this new world. She assures Tilda that everything is fine and requests black tea. When Tilda returns with the tea service, Rita instinctively moves to help. Tilda immediately stops her, asking her to wait a moment. The maid's demeanor becomes stern. She firmly reminds Rita of her station. She is Lady Rita Scrine, daughter of a duke and a future queen. Tilda insists that she must not act subservient or help with a maid's job. Rita can only offer a hesitant, yes, but... In response, Tilda's stern facade cracks into exasperation, her internal thoughts screaming no way. Rita is then taken aback as the maid suddenly asks to be called by her first name, Tilda, and to drop the formalities. She agrees to her maid's request, stammering, "Gee, got it. Tilda." A warm smile spreads across her face as she explains that the informal moment made her happy, as if they were close friends. Tilda giggles in response, but their shared moment is cut short by a knock at the door. Tilda's demeanor instantly shifts back to that of a formal servant as she calls for the visitor to enter, leaving Rita to think her maid is quite the weirdo. The door opens to reveal King Eugene, accompanied by Ilberd and another gentleman. Startled, Rita greets them. The king apologizes for the early intrusion, explaining that he came to offer an apology after hearing that Ilberd had entered her room without permission the day before. The other man playfully interjects that he had permission, calling the accusation slander. He continues, stating that he has summoned Ilberd to prepare her for joining the royal family before the Naf obliges. The unfamiliar term leaves Rita confused. When she questions it, Eugene clarifies that he is referring to her tutoring. The other man then explains that Naf obliges is a traditional ceremony where someone marrying into the royal family is formally recognized as royalty. King Eugene adds that the engagement party will be held in a month and a half, coinciding with the Dowager Queen's return. Rita quietly processes the information, concluding that royalty certainly has its own unique customs. Alone once more, the weight of the timeline settles upon her. She realizes with a start that a month and a half is barely any time at all, and she must decide on the marriage proposal quickly. She resolves to accept King Eugene's terms for now and will contemplate the marriage while studying with Ilberd. A few days later, the scene shifts. Rita is slumped over a mountain of books, completely exhausted. The intense studying reminds her of exam season, leaving her no time to think. From off-panel, Ilberd instructs her to copy the next passage. Startled by his voice, she looks up from her work and nervously asks if she made a mistake. Ilberd confirms that she did and hands her another text, telling her to read it as well. Her flustered expression gives way to confusion as Ilberd thoughtfully observes how odd it is that she can read the language of this world but cannot write it. Rita confirms that this is, for some reason, the case. She offers a weak apology, claiming she has always been self-conscious about her bad handwriting and may have slacked off. Internally, however, she panics, wondering if this is some defect of the summoning magic. She realizes that whenever she attempts to write, the words simply blur in her mind. Ilberd seems unconvinced by her excuse. He remarks that Duke Scrine must have been quite lenient with her education. Faced with the skepticism, Rita can only manage a strained laugh, wondering what kind of person her tutor must think she is. Her studies were interrupted by a voice from the doorway. The door creaked open to reveal King Eugene, who asked if he could have a moment of her time. Startled, she turned away from her tutor, Ilberd, who stood in the background and stammered an affirmative reply. He apologized for the interruption and asked how her studies were progressing. Rita assured him she would manage, which seemed to relieve him. He then explained that he couldn't stay, as he had several meetings lined up. As she watched him, she quietly acknowledged to herself that she understood. He was always so busy that they barely saw each other, and she was beginning to feel a little lonely. Before he left, however, he requested her hand. He then placed a small, ornate wooden box in her palms, leaving her to wonder what it was. She opened the lid to find it filled with black tea. Her eyes widened in amazement at the incredible aroma. Seeing her delight, the king expressed his gladness and told her to drink it during her breaks. Overwhelmed, she thanked him profusely. With a final, gentle smile, King Eugene excused himself and departed, having delivered his gift. His unexpected kindness left her flustered. She wondered if Hashina Koen had ever smiled like that, or if this was simply King Eugene's royal demeanor. She then realized he had personally come to give her the tea, and that he had been visiting almost every day just to check on her. Lost in thought, she was brought back to the present by Tilda, who had entered the room. Her maid, having seen the king leave, asked what he had wanted, wondering if it was part of his duty. A warm, pleased smile spread across Rita's face as she held up the gift. She explained to a surprised Tilda that the king had simply come to give her the tea. She muses aloud to Tilda that she believes King Eugene is a very kind person. Tilda, flustered, questions this, pointing out that while he's kind to Rita, he still has a frightening expression when looking at her. Rita dismisses this, reasoning that they haven't been treated poorly as the rumor suggested. In fact, they've been safe, so perhaps he isn't as terrifying as people claim. Despite her own experience, she wonders why he is called the Cruel Wolf. The memory of her father's grave expression and the sight of Tilda's concern make it clear that everyone else seems to hold this view. The fear associated with that name appears to be deeply engraved in people's minds. Determined to understand, she spots her tutor and calls out, "Excuse me, Ilberd-san." She thinks that perhaps he can explain it to her. He turns, responding with a simple HM. He listens as she asks her question directly. Why do people call King Eugene the Cruel Wolf? Ilberd pauses before offering a simple explanation, suggesting it is merely because his aura and face are terrifying. She immediately senses he is dodging the question. Insisting that can't be the only reason, she presses him, stating that she truly wants to know the truth. He begins to reiterate his point with a placid smile, starting with, "Like I said," but she cuts him off, her gaze unwavering as she declares, "I'm serious." Her sudden intensity silences him, his smile vanishing as he looks at her with a new expression. Standing amid stacks of books, Rita's scrying confirms her understanding of the political landscape. She acknowledges that Fighterix is indeed the largest country on the eastern side of the continent. Her tutor, Ilberd, explains that this is precisely the point. He elaborates on the immense, invisible burden King Eugene carries on his shoulders, the continued existence of the country and the lives of its hundreds of millions of people. To rule such a vast kingdom, Ilberd insists, means one must carry many burdens. He then leans closer, his gaze intense, and poses a direct, piercing question to Rita. Does she possess the resolve to help the king carry that burden? The weight of his words visibly stuns her, her eyes widening in shock. She is left speechless, unable to form a reply. The single thought, "I can't reply," echoes in her mind as she stands frozen. Before she can struggle further, her maid, Tilda, steps forward, addressing Ilberd directly. She firmly requests that he refrain from making Lady Rita uncomfortable. Ilberd turns to Tilda, explaining that he was merely answering a question and that his true concern is preventing Rita from suddenly deciding to run away. Tilda finds this notion absurd, laughing as she questions if he seriously thinks Rita might flee. Caught in the middle, Rita can only manage a nervous laugh, as Ilberd clarifies it was just an example. The tension causes Rita to take an involuntary, hesitant step backward, the heels of her shoes clicking softly against the polished floor. Ilberd watches her retreat, quietly musing on the concept of having the resolve to carry every burden. Rita turns away from him, the delicate chains of her necklace clinking with the movement. As she walks alone down the grand, echoing hallway, the full weight of her situation settles upon her. She realizes with stark clarity that if she proceeds with the marriage, she will become queen. The thought is too much. She concludes that it's no good, that she can't even imagine herself in such a role. Her mind conjures a simplistic, almost childish image of being a queen, like waving from a float in a carnival parade, before she shuts her eyes, overwhelmed by the impossible reality. She stands alone in the grand hallway, the weight of her situation pressing down. A single thought consumes her. Maybe it would be best if the king didn't choose her as his queen. She feels she can't even begin to process it. In fact, she realizes with a jolt of panic, she hasn't even decided if she wants to marry him in the first place. The overwhelming thought makes her clutch her head in distress. A sudden knock at her door interrupts her turmoil. "Who's there?" she calls out. A man's voice replies, "It's me." Ilberd enters, asking what the matter is, as it's quite late for a visit. He gestures for her to come in. He holds out a book, explaining that he wanted to return it. Rita accepts it with a quiet word of thanks. Ilberd reassures her that it's all right, as they're the only ones there, addressing her familiarly as Yano-san. She recalls lending the book to Ilberd and apologizes for making him return it, but then dismisses the thought, adding that she used it for writing practice anyway. Ilberd listens as she elaborates, explaining that while she can speak and read this world's language, she is unable to write it. She admits to herself that it was difficult coming up with an explanation for him about this. He considers this, comparing it to being able to read English without necessarily knowing how to spell. As he wonders if it's truly the same, the atmosphere reminds Rita of staying late after committee work. Ilberd's expression then changes as he remembers something he wanted to give her. He presents her with a map of the castle. Ilberd explains that the structure is built like a labyrinth, and if she decides to stay, she might need it someday. The implication gives her pause. Noticing the time, he apologizes for keeping her and starts to leave. As he moves to go, Ilberd gently places his hand over hers, stopping her. He insists she isn't in the way and asks her to stay a little longer. He then requests to hear about her life after high school. Flustered by the personal question, Rita nonetheless agrees to his offer to make some black tea. Over tea, their conversation continues. Ilberd chuckles, noting she must have worked for quite some time. Rita reflects on her past, confessing that she always regretted being so busy that she never even had time to decide on a part-time job. She grows slightly flustered, asking Ilberd not to laugh as it seems their conversation has been entirely about her. He reassures her, saying he found it quite fun. She continues, explaining that she worked all the way through her university graduation, which prompts a light-hearted laugh from Ilberd, who exclaims that's 4 whole years. His laughter subsides into a gentle smile. He admits it's a mysterious feeling to hear about what she was doing while he was away, but he finds it interesting and is glad she shared it with him. As she observes his innocent and cute laughter, she internally reflects that he is nothing like the fearsome, cruel wolf he is rumored to be. Her quiet observation is cut short when his expression turns serious, and he suddenly apologizes to her. Startled by the abrupt shift, she asks why he is apologizing. He explains that he hasn't been able to spare much time for her, leaving her to feel uneasy while struggling with her studies. She turns away, dismissing his concern by insisting that it couldn't be helped since he had his own work to attend to. Despite her words, he leans closer, his gaze intense. He confesses that he feels much more at ease when he sees her, and that watching her work so hard gives him energy. He then admits that this feeling makes him want to see her, even if the request is unreasonable. His confession resonates with her, and she quietly agrees that she feels the same way. The words "at ease" and "gives me energy" echo in her mind. Her thoughts then turn inward, acknowledging how difficult her studies are and how she often feels on the verge of breaking. Yet, she finds strength in the belief that she is doing it all for Hashina-kun's sake. This resolve, however, is tinged with uncertainty. She wonders if Hashina-kun feels the same way, or if he simply considers them friends or helps her out of a sense of guilt. She reflects on the immense responsibility he carries, yet he always smiles and helps her as if it were no burden at all. Because of this selfless nature she perceives in him, she looks up with renewed determination and declares aloud her desire to help Hashina-kun as well. As she speaks the name, her mind immediately corrects itself, her expression hardening with focus. It is not Hashina-kun she is thinking of, but King Eugene. The weight of that name seems to hang in the air, reflected in the glittering facets of the grand chandelier above them. She turned to Ilbert, a soft smile on her face, the previous internal conflict settling into a quiet resolve. The air between them, once thick with unspoken tension, now seemed to shimmer with a gentle light as she began to speak, explaining that she wanted to be of use to King Eugene. A memory, or perhaps a daydream, surfaces in Yano Kane's mind. She stands before Ilbert Landry, who is offering a marriage proposal. With Tilda watching from the side, Yano humbly accepts, her gaze fixed on Ilbert's gentle expression. The vision shatters as Tilda's voice calls out, "Rita-sama." Snap back to reality. Yano sees the maid holding out a letter from the Scrine family. Taking it, Yano's mind races. She wonders if this means the real Rita Scrine has made up her mind to marry King Eugene. As she begins to read, the salutation catches her off guard. "Dear Ritonissima." The writer explains that she is now living as Layla, Rita's younger twin sister. Yano realizes that this is why the letter addressed her with the formal term for an older sister. The letter continues, with Layla, expressing that both she and their father were relieved to hear Yano had arrived safely at the castle. Yano internally notes the discrepancy. The Duke was certainly not relieved for the same reasons as his daughter. The words convey a deep apology. The real Rita expresses her sincere regret for dragging Yano into the situation, admitting it was her own selfish wish that resulted in Yano being sent to the castle. Yano notices smudged ink on the parchment, a clear sign that the writer must have cried. The letter continues with a heartfelt apology, a promise to treasure the time Yano has given her, and a plea for Yano to pray that she might meet a wonderful gentleman. Reading on, she learns that the real Rita is also sorry for being unable to share information about King Eugene or how her identity was exposed. Lastly, she mentions the certain method she promised to find, admitting their search has yielded no results and asking Yano to wait a little longer. The letter's contents weigh on her mind as she rests on a chaise lounge. Ilbert watches her with a soft, knowing smile. She thinks about the possibility of returning home. If a way is found, and the real Rita finds love, she will revert to being Yano Kane. A new worry surfaces. What then would become of Ilbert? The question lingers, troubling her. She closes her eyes, overwhelmed by the uncertainty of what she would do if that time truly comes. For now, she resolves to stop thinking about a future she cannot predict. Her quiet contemplation is interrupted by Tilda's arrival. The maid announces that it is time for her dance lesson. Setting her worries aside for the moment, Yano agrees to begin. Her contemplation was shattered by a sharp reprimand. A voice cried out, pointing out that her back was bent and reminding her that proper posture is the most fundamental of basics. The strict tone belonged to Tilda, who physically shook her mistress, urging her to look ahead and stop trembling. Yano was taken aback. It was as if her maid had become a completely different person. Tilda explained with grave seriousness that dancing is not merely for show. It reflects one's worth, family status, and the reputation of one's future husband. She warned that any embarrassment to King Eugene at the engagement party would have dire consequences, suggesting their heads would be chopped off. The harsh reality of noble society settled heavily on Yano. As she processed the grim warning, a new voice joined them. It was Ilbert. He noted with a gentle smile that he had knocked, but received no reply. Observing her practice, he affectionately patted her head, praising her diligence like one would a child. Annoyed by the gesture, Yano watched as he then made an offer to serve as a practice partner. Before she could even properly respond, Tilda enthusiastically accepted on her behalf. Ilbert gave a charming wink, reasoning that it's better to dance with a partner than alone and that nothing beats hands-on experience. Defeated, Yano could only sigh and ask him to be gentle. With a confident smile, Ilbert expressed his anticipation for their dance, addressing her informally as Rita-chan. During a strenuous dance lesson, Rita struggles to keep up with her tutor, Ilbert. Dizzy and out of breath, she begs for a moment's rest as he relentlessly critiques her form, telling her she is too slow to turn, her balance is off, and she must maintain elegance down to her fingertips. Despite the vigorous practice, Ilbert hasn't broken a single bead of sweat. As he hums a tune, Rita realizes with a sense of awe that he is truly accustomed to dancing. Exhausted, she collapses onto the polished floor. A concerned Tilda rushes to her side, but Rita waves her off, insisting she can manage. Her mind then drifts to a fantasy of dancing not with her tutor, but with King Eugene. She forcefully shakes her head, mentally scolding herself. She cannot afford to let her mind wander right now. She must focus on the lesson. Suddenly, Ilbert leans in, his face mere inches from hers, startling her. With a knowing look, he whispers, asking if she was just imagining herself dancing with King Eugene. He then pulls back with a confident smile, reassuring her that she will get the hang of it in no time. He suggests they do their best to make that imagined dance a reality. As he speaks, another hand suddenly appears, intercepting Ilbert's own. A sharp, unfamiliar voice cuts through the room, demanding, "What are you doing?" The intruder is King Eugene himself, his expression severe. Stunned, Rita hastily explains that these are her dance lessons and she asked Ilbert to be her partner. Her explanation falters as she sees him glaring at her, and she wonders with a pang of fear if he is angry. The king turns to depart, apologizing for the interruption. However, Ilbert stops him, announcing he's just had a great idea. King Eugene should be Rita's practice partner for the next dance, to get her ready for the real thing. The suggestion leaves both the king and Rita utterly shocked. Ilbert presses on, arguing that helping her is the king's duty, both as a monarch and as her future husband. Rita freezes, consumed by a chilling thought. If she makes a single misstep, like treading on his foot, he might just have her executed. She stares at the man before her, the one now designated as her future husband. Her dance tutor, Ilbert, speaks with false deference, reminding her that she is free to decline so as not to inconvenience the king, though his smug expression suggests he expects the opposite. In response to the tense silence, the king extends his hand. "Give me your hand," he requests calmly. Rita lets out a small, startled gasp as Ilbert, watching from the side, impatiently encourages her to comply. As her fingers tentatively meet his, a torrent of conflicting thoughts floods her mind. She desperately wishes she could understand his thoughts just from this touch. Her feelings for Hashina remain as strong as ever, unchanged by time. Yet, when she tries to parse her feelings for King Eugene, she finds only a void, an inexplicable block, as if her thoughts and feelings are being censored. Her internal turmoil causes her to look down. Ilbert's voice cuts through, chiding that they cannot begin if she continues to avert her gaze. She thinks it feels unfair to let her own emotions be so dependent on his, wishing she could somehow discern Hashina's true feelings within the persona of the king. Spurred by the thought, she snaps her head up, her eyes wide with a sudden understanding. Her gaze meets the king's, and she is struck by the kindness in his expression, just like when he gave her black tea. As she processes this, her maid Tilda quietly encourages her. "Then please start." Overwhelmed and flustered, she takes a clumsy step and loses her balance. A cry of alarm escapes her as she begins to fall, but the king moves swiftly, catching her securely in his arms as he calls out, "Rita!" Catching her from fall, King Eugene pulls Rita into a close embrace, his face near hers as he asks if she is all right. She stares up at him, her eyes wide with surprise. Still held tightly against him, her mind races with a single, panicked thought. He is hugging her. Her face flushes, suddenly aware of just how close he is. He leans in, his expression serious as he asks if she is hurt anywhere. Flustered, Rita stammers an apology and insists that she is fine. Despite her assurances, he does not let go. Rita apologizes again and asks if he could please release her. When he remains motionless, she realizes with a start that he isn't budging and hesitantly calls out his name. Her heart pounds in her chest as they remain in the embrace, his intense gaze fixed upon hers. He finally releases her, though his hands linger on her arms. Looking away, he states that everything is fine as long as she is not hurt. Clutching her chest, Rita can only offer another apology. From a distance down the hall, Tilda and Ilbert watch the pair walk away. Tilda turns to her companion, asking if she can pose a question to him. Ilbert simply responds with an inquisitive sound. He turns to her with a knowing smirk, asking what in the world they are watching right now. Tilda, caught off guard and flustered, begins to stammer a reply. He continues his commentary, theatrically suggesting that it feels like mutual love to him, the first page of a story about youth caught between friendship and love. He then asks Tilda for her opinion, and she hesitantly agrees that it seems like something like that. The moment between Rita and the king is broken by a sharp knock at the door, startling her. She offers to get it, but King Eugene places a hand on her shoulder, firmly stating that he will answer it instead. Despite the king's insistence that he would answer the door, it was Ilbert who received the visitor. Tilda recognized the man as King Eugene's personal aide. The aide presented a letter, which Ilbert accepted with a questioning look, his brow furrowing in confusion. He turned from the door to face Rita and a curious Tilda. After a brief, formal acknowledgement, Ilbert relayed the news from the letter. The Dowager Queen would be returning from her duties the following week and intended to arrange a meeting with Rita as soon as possible. The announcement of an impending audience with the Queen Mother left both women stunned. To prepare for the momentous occasion, Ilbert enthusiastically declared that they would begin serious practice immediately. With a determined expression, Rita agreed, stating she would prepare herself. The scene then shifts forward in time to the night before the scheduled meeting. That night, Rita found herself unable to rest. She looked over at the empty bed in her shared room, wondering if Tilda was still awake and briefly wishing they could share some black tea together. She buried her face in her pillow, consumed by an anxiety she hadn't anticipated, the sheer nervousness of meeting a prospective mother-in-law. She desperately wished for a script, some guide on how to properly greet the king's mother. Unable to remain in bed, a wave of resolve passed over her. She sat up, swung her legs over the side, and decisively slipped her feet into her shoes, ready to take action. Yano Kane found herself standing outside King Eugene's room, her hand hovering hesitantly. She reasoned that the king must be working, and it would be best to leave rather than arouse suspicion by loitering in the hallway. As she considered her options, a man's voice suddenly asked what was wrong. Startled, she turned to see Ilbert Landry, who addressed her as Lady Rita, causing her to let out a small shriek of surprise. He held the door open, inviting her to come in. With a quiet word of thanks, she accepted and stepped past him into the room as the door clicked shut behind them. Once they were seated, he correctly surmised the reason for her presence, guessing that she was too nervous about the following day's events to be able to sleep. His accurate assessment caught her off guard. She looked at him, a hint of vulnerability in her eyes, and asked if she was really that easy to read. He simply confirmed that she was. Embarrassed, she covered her face with her hands, letting out a small, self-conscious laugh at being so transparent. He then clarified his statement was not a judgment. In response, she confessed her true fears, that she would cause trouble by messing up the wedding ceremony or reception, and that her entire deception would be exposed the next day. As she spoke, an internal thought crossed Ilbert's mind. He lamented his words, realizing that what he had truly wanted to say was her real name, Yano-san. He looked at her with sincerity and told her she would be fine, acknowledging how much effort she had put in since her arrival. He then added, "I know you." The familiar phrasing made her look up in surprise, questioning if he was Hashina-kun. She voiced another worry, suggesting that because she was from another world, she might possess an otherworldly aura. Ilbert chuckled at the notion, dismissing her concern by stating that no one could possibly tell if she were a noble or not simply by looking. He continued his attempt to soothe her anxieties, explaining that he was in a similar predicament. As the new king, he too had memories the Queen Dowager was unaware of, assuring Yano that she would be fine. He added that she had grown significantly since her arrival, a fact he felt was important for her to acknowledge, causing her to quietly reflect on his words. Leaning in with a look of sincere conviction, he promised to remain by her side throughout the entire ordeal, from the wedding ceremony to the reception, vowing to protect her regardless of the circumstances. Her expression softened with relief, a faint blush on her cheeks. She quietly accepted his reassurance, thanking him for his words. As she turned to leave for the night, she thanked him once more for listening. He responded with a bright smile, urging her to get a good night's rest before the important day ahead. Just as she was about to depart, his hand came to rest on her shoulder, stopping her. Her heart skipped a beat as she turned to face him. His gaze was intense as he reiterated his solemn vow to keep her safe, no matter what. Slightly flustered by his proximity and the weight of his promise, she lowered her gaze and agreed, murmuring that she would also do her best. As she thanked him, he seemed to react with a quiet, sharp intake of breath. She finally departed, leaving him behind. Alone in the grand hallway, she paused, her hands pressed against her chest as she processed the encounter. A single thought echoed in her mind. He was always the one protecting her. And with that, the night passed. The day of the fated meeting with the Dowager Queen arrived under a sky so clear it was dazzling. In a grand, quiet hallway, the sound of deliberate footsteps echoes. Light streams through a large, paned window, illuminating the path forward. The footsteps belong to Ilbert, who stops before an ornate door. He turns to Lady Rita, his expression serious, as he informs her that his mother is waiting inside. As he speaks, the door latch clicks open. She looks toward the opening with visible apprehension. Ilbert attempts to soothe her nerves, reminding her that today is the day she will finally meet the Dowager Queen and that it will be all right. Rita can only manage a quiet, tense okay. From the now open doorway, a female attendant greets them with a smile, apologizing for the delay and welcoming them inside. Ilbert reaches for the door to guide it fully open. Upon entering, Rita's eyes widen. Before her stands the Dowager Queen, an elegant figure wreathed in an aura of blooming roses. Rita is immediately struck by her beauty, her hands twisting nervously in front of her. The Queen's face breaks into a radiant, welcoming smile. She exclaims her thanks for coming and expresses immense gladness at finally meeting Rita's shrine. Rita herself appears stunned into silence by the sheer warmth of the greeting. Ilbert, seeing this, gently chides his mother for being too frank, concerned she might overwhelm Rita. Internally, Rita is shocked, wondering to herself how the Dowager Queen could be so incredibly straightforward. Catching herself, the Queen apologizes with a light-hearted expression, admitting she got a little carried away by her happiness. She then announces her intention to formally introduce herself. She presents herself with a flourish as Quirce Marie Eistelot, adding with a knowing smile that she is the mother of the stern-looking King Eugene. She warmly says it is nice to meet Rita, who is taken aback that even the Queen acknowledges her son's severe appearance. In response to this warmth, Rita performs a deep, formal curtsy. She introduces herself as the daughter of Duke Scrine, stating it is an honor and asking the Queen to look after her despite her shortcomings. Quirce Marie simply laughs, telling her there is no need to be so formal. causing Rita to look up in flustered surprise. She listened as the Dowager Queen invited them to talk over tea, playfully chiding her son Ilberd not to just stand there like a big tree. Rita was momentarily puzzled by the strange expression, while Ilberd simply agreed to his mother's request. The queen continued her effusive commentary, noting how her other son, Eugene, is always so arrogant. She likened his stern demeanor to that of a bear, one she would flee from on sight. Rita, still a bit overwhelmed by the queen's constant energy, could only manage a nervous agreement, her expression turning more serious. She set her teacup down with a sharp clack. The queen confessed that she had completely given up hope, believing her son would never get married. Beside Rita, Ilberd seemed to have tuned out the conversation entirely. She elaborated, explaining that at his age, she had never once heard of him taking an interest in anyone, let alone trying to find a bride. Ilberd, snapping back to attention, was aghast. He demanded to know what his mother was saying, his outburst startling Rita. The queen's candid revelation led Rita to a startling conclusion. This meant King Eugene had never even had a girlfriend in this world. As the queen expressed her own surprise at the turn of events, Rita felt an unexpected wave of relief wash over her. She briefly wondered if this feeling stemmed from the possibility that the king had been thinking of her, but she immediately pushed the absurd notion aside. Ilberd attempted to change the subject, but his mother was undeterred. The queen turned her focus to Rita, asking where she and Eugene had met. She recalled that Rita was from Air Fillerk Island and expressed her curiosity about how their paths could have possibly crossed. A jolt of panic shot through Rita. She couldn't possibly explain that they had met as part of a high school committee in an entirely different world. With a look of intense frustration, King Eugene cuts through the pleasantries. He states firmly that he did not come here to waste time and demands they stop. As Rita begins to stammer a protest, he continues, stating that if all they have is empty chatter, he has better things to do and intends to leave. Hearing his declaration, Rita lowers her gaze to her teacup, calmly acknowledging his point. "Oh, I see," she murmurs. In that case, before she can finish, the Dowager Queen interjects with a pleasant smile, suggesting that Eugene should leave Rita with her. She assures him that she and Rita-san will have fun without him, causing both Eugene and Rita to react with surprise. He lets out an exasperated groan as the queen's voice continues, reminding him how much she was looking forward to today while he was away handling his duties. She questions if he understands, implying he shouldn't refuse her. With the matter settled, the queen cheerfully dismisses Eugene. A flustered Rita insists it's no bother, but the queen internally remarks how he acts just like a son. Defeated, Eugene announces he will be working in the next room and departs. Once he is gone, the atmosphere shifts. The Dowager Queen turns her full attention to Rita, stating she has something to ask. When Rita politely inquires what it is, the queen poses a direct and weighty question. What does Rita think about marrying Eugene? The queen presses further, her sharp gaze questioning if Rita truly means her response. Looking down, her expression a mixture of resolve and anxiety, Rita replies that she thinks of it as a great honor. Internally, Rita reflects on her answer. She admits to herself that she was initially very surprised and scared, having believed King Eugene was a terrifying person. She concludes that all she can do is be honest about her feelings. In the adjacent room, Eugene considers her words. He acknowledges that he can seem cold or scary on the surface, but he quickly realized she saw past the rumors. He believes she perceives his true nature as a good and kind person, and for that reason, he is certain she meant it when she called the proposal an honor. In response to the Dowager Queen's inquiry, Rita closes her eyes and speaks with serene conviction. She declares her desire to become a queen who can truly support the king, acknowledging that while it may sound presumptuous, it is how she genuinely feels. The queen listens in silence, her expression unreadable. The queen's placid demeanor shatters. She abruptly rises from her seat, startling Rita, and exclaims that she wants to see flowers now. Rita, taken aback by the sudden and bizarre change of subject, can only stammer in confusion. Insisting, the queen commands Rita to come with her. A flustered Rita quickly agrees. As the queen leads her down a grand hallway, Rita internally notes that they are not heading for the garden. Her unease grows as they descend a stone staircase, and a heavy door clacks shut behind them, plunging them into a dimmer passage. The queen now holds a lantern, illuminating a narrow, stone-walled corridor. She leads the way without a word, her footsteps echoing softly. Rita follows a few paces behind, her expression filled with hesitation as she takes in their grim surroundings. Her apprehension mounting, Rita finally speaks up, her voice tentative. She asks the queen where exactly they are, her eyes wide with concern as she glances around the unfamiliar passage. As she continues walking, realization dawns on her. This route was on the map that King Eugene had given her just the other day. She recalls the layout, remembering that a left turn should be coming up next. As she walked, Rita's mind raced. She was relieved she had struggled to memorize the map she was given, but a new worry surfaced. This particular path had never been mentioned on it. A dreadful thought occurred. What if her recent conversation had revealed something suspicious about her, and now she was being chased out? She continued onward with the Dowager Queen through a long, dark, brick-lined tunnel, their way lit only by a single, glowing lantern. Suddenly, the queen grabbed her arm, causing Rita to let out a small cry of surprise. Just ahead, a brilliant light bloomed at the end of the passage, clearly marking an exit. Urging her to look, the queen led her toward the opening. The light grew so intense that it became blinding as they drew closer. They stepped out of the darkness and into a breathtaking scene. Before them lay a vast, hidden field filled with countless flowers that glowed with their own soft light. Rita could only gasp in awe at the beautiful sight. The Dowager Queen identified the flowers as fiaclage, the national flower of the country, which Rita confirmed she knew. The queen then revealed the true nature of their path. The tunnels were secret escape routes. They were built so the castle's inhabitants could flee to another city in the forest should the castle ever come under attack. This startling revelation left Rita deeply unsettled. She couldn't help but wonder why the queen was entrusting her with this information, questioning if this was a subtle command to get out of the castle. The queen continued, explaining the solemn duties tied to this route. The queen must always remember this path, for while the king's duty is to fight for the castle until his last breath, it is the queen's duty to lead everyone else to safety in his stead. At that moment, Rita finally understood King Eugene's cryptic warning that she might need the map he gave her. This tunnel was far more important than she could have imagined. Looking directly at Rita, the Dowager Queen then posed a pointed question. If the castle were attacked and Rita fulfilled her duty to evacuate everyone, what would she do next? The question hung in the air as petals drifted by. Rita stared into the distance, lost in thought, contemplating what she would do after escaping. Her thoughts drifted to Ilbert Landry, a faint, knowing smile on his face. As the Dowager Queen's hand rested on her shoulder, Rita voiced her decision with quiet conviction. She would come back. She anticipated the unspoken question, whether she would really return to a dangerous castle crawling with enemies. Rita acknowledged that it would be terrifying, but her resolve was firm. Imagining Ilbert's supportive presence, she concluded her thought, stating that she would foolishly return to stand by King Eugene's side. To explain her reasoning, Rita recounted a story she'd heard about a past queen of Eance. When that king was about to be assassinated by a traitor, his queen fought to protect him. That tale, she confessed, had left a profound impression on her. With rising passion, Rita declared her own desire to protect the king, just as that queen had. She admitted she couldn't wield a sword, but would instead work tirelessly with him to prevent any attempts on his life or the castle. Realizing her outburst, she quickly apologized for speaking out of turn. The Dowager Queen, however, revealed this was all a test. She recalled Rita's earlier words about wanting to support the king and had orchestrated this to gauge her seriousness. Apologizing for the deception, the queen declared that she now understood Rita was perfectly suited to be Eugene's wife. A flustered Rita insisted the apology should be hers. Now allied, the queen explained that Eugene rules through fear and struggles to find trustworthy people. She expressed her wish to find allies for him, a sentiment Rita eagerly shared. Internally, the Dowager Queen chuckled, musing on what a wonderful girl her rascal son had found. In a palace corridor, King Eugene, looking startled, calls out to Lady Rita as she appears in a doorway. She turns to him with a neutral expression, responding to his unasked question by stating that she managed to find her way back just fine. He steps closer, his concern evident as he asks if she is all right. Rita looks up at him and calmly reassures him that she is fine. Hearing her confirmation, the king lets out a quiet sigh of relief, his tense expression softening. The scene shifts, focusing on a grand staircase in what appears to be a ballroom, and then on an ornate, jewel-encrusted tiara, hinting at a formal occasion to come. The Dowager Queen, Quirce Marie, gently places that very tiara upon Rita's head. She tells Rita that it looks good on her and entrusts her to take care of Eugene. Looking up at the queen, Rita solemnly promises that she will. Now adorned with the tiara, Rita stands before King Eugene. He gazes at her with a warm, gentle smile, and she returns his look with a soft, appreciative expression. The two then share a dance in the grand ballroom. Eugene leads, holding her close as they move across the floor, both appearing lost in the moment under the starlit illusion of the ceiling. From the sidelines, other nobles watch the pair. Among them, the Dowager Queen observes her son and Rita with a subtle, satisfied smile. A few days later, Rita is taken aback when the Dowager Queen brings up the idea of a date with King Eugene. The queen explains that Ilbert informed her the two have never gone anywhere alone. She laments having such a useless son who doesn't understand a woman's heart, apologizing for him, leaving Rita by herself. She becomes completely flustered, insisting to the queen that being too understanding is not a good thing. Rita tries to argue that she knows the king is a busy man and feels it wouldn't be right to ask him to take time off just for her. Her wrist was seized firmly as the Dowager Queen, lost in a fond memory, continued her story. She recalled how the previous king would always give her flowers, and how they would spend time simply walking hand in hand. It was all so romantic, the queen mused, building up to her point. With a brilliant, decisive smile, she then announced her plan to Rita and Ilbert. She declared that Rita would be going on a date with Eugene the very next day. The suddenness of the arrangement left Rita speechless, her eyes wide with shock as she began to stammer. But the Dowager Queen cheerfully steamrolled any potential objection, telling her to leave all the plans in her capable hands. As the grand castle stood against the sky, a single, panicked thought echoed in Rita's mind. The date was tomorrow. Standing on a balcony overlooking the sprawling castle grounds, Rita's shrine gazes into the distance, her thoughts consumed by one question: whether King Eugene will actually attend their arranged meeting. Her reverie is broken by Ilberd, who stands beside her. He attempts to manage her expectations, pointing out that since the outing was only decided the previous day, it's entirely possible the king might not show up at all. Just as he says this, Ilberd's expression shifts to one of relief as he spots an arrival. He murmurs his thanks that the person made it. Rita, initially confused by his reaction, follows his gaze and exclaims in surprise, recognizing King Eugene. Before she can process the king's presence, a young man with long, light hair drapes an arm over her shoulder. He playfully asks Ilberd why he's accompanying Rita, then answers his own question with a grin, declaring that the reason is obvious. Ilberd glares, sharply telling the man to get lost. Unfazed, the newcomer insists he was only joking, adding that he would never miss such an entertaining, or rather, joyous, occasion as King Eugene's first outing with a girl. Sometime later, as Rita prepares to depart, her maid Tilda offers some final words of encouragement. She tells Rita not to worry about her duties and to simply relax and enjoy herself, a sentiment Rita gratefully accepts. As a coachman gestures toward the waiting carriage, Ilberd steps in. He dismisses the coachman's aide, stating that he will help Rita up himself before ordering the driver to prepare for departure. Inside the carriage, Rita looks out the window in wonder, admitting she had no idea what the world outside the castle was like. When Ilberd asks if she didn't see it on her way in, she confesses she was too nervous about meeting him to notice anything. Her honest admission seems to soften him. Ilberd looks at her and remarks that, in that case, it can't be helped. Rita, however, seems puzzled by his gentle response. She turns away, her expression falling as she misinterprets his words. She formally apologizes for taking his time, adding that she is grateful. Internally, she worries his formal tone means he dislikes the outing. Seeing her sadness, Ilberd gently pleads, "Please don't be sad." Her apparent sadness prompts Ilberd to apologize, explaining that he didn't mean to ruin the mood. He confesses that he was also looking forward to their outing, but feels awkward and unsure how to act, as this is a new experience for him. With a pained expression, he adds that he feels it's not his place, since he wasn't the one who invited her. Having confessed his feelings, he trails off and looks away. The realization dawns on Rita. He wasn't displeased, but simply worried. A warmth spreads through her chest at the thought. She brightens, her previous anxieties melting away. Looking out at the town, she cheerfully declares that they should have a wonderful day together, addressing him as King Eugene. In response, Ilberd quietly murmurs a shortened version of the name, Jean. He then clarifies the situation, explaining that since they are undercover for the day, they will be using the aliases Jean and Lena. Rita processes this unexpected rule with a moment of confused silence. Ilberd then addresses her directly as Lena. The sound of a name from his lips sends a jolt through Rita. She blushes furiously, her mind racing with the thought that it feels as intimate as lovers calling each other by their first names. While preparing for an outing, Ilberd asks Rita how the engagement party preparations are progressing. Startled from her thoughts, she assures him that things are going smoothly, thanks to the Dowager Queen's assistance. He then asks if she will be all right meeting her again. Rita smiles, confirming she will be fine, and reveals that the real Rita sent a letter. The letter states she will attend the party disguised as her own younger sister, Layla. Internally, Rita reaffirms her goal, to ask the real Rita if she has found a way to return to her old world. Moments later, their carriage rolls to a stop on a cobblestone street, announcing their arrival. Having disembarked, Ilberd's expression is tense. He instructs Rita to stay close to him while they are in town, warning that one never knows what might happen. He quietly hopes for an uneventful outing, and a slightly nervous Rita agrees. Her nervousness gives way to awe as she takes in the view of the bustling city. Ilberd explains that it is arguably the most prosperous city in the entire country. She continues to admire the beautiful cityscape, wishing she had a camera. Noticing Ilberd's silence, she tells him it's all right, as this is his job. However, his attention is elsewhere. He has spotted his secretary and bodyguards, muttering in annoyance. Rita, oblivious, asks who he sees. He quickly dismisses her question, claiming it is nothing. He credits the city's prosperity to King Eugene's care for his people. Changing the subject, he suggests they go window shopping, and Rita happily agrees. Her eyes are drawn to a particular item in a shop window. It's a cute piece of jewelry shaped like a fox, which immediately reminds her of Foxy. Following this, her attention lands on a jewelry shop. She tentatively asks Ilberd if they could go inside for a bit. He agrees without hesitation as they approach the glittering display cases. Inside, Rita picks up a delicate bracelet, commenting on how cute it is. To her shock, Ilberd immediately tells the shopkeeper he will purchase it. Flustered, Rita protests, stammering that it's too expensive. She stands frozen as Ilberd fastens the delicate bracelet onto her wrist, her mind racing. "Are you listening to me?" she blurts out, flustered by the sudden, expensive gesture. He looks at her intently, explaining that this is their first date and he wants to give her something to remember it by. His sincerity cuts through her confusion. A blush rises on her cheeks as she thanks him, promising to treasure the gift. The moment triggers a memory. She recalls a time with Hashina-kun, realizing that the small fox, Foxy, was also a gift exchange between them. It dawns on her that this is the first present she's received from a man since that time. Shaking off the memory, she rejoins the present moment as Ilberd suggests they continue exploring the festival. They wade deeper into the cheerful crowd, watching street performers as Foxy balances happily atop her head. She turns to share her excitement with Ilberd, remarking on how much fun the traveling performers are. It feels so refreshing, she explains, like something she could never experience back in her own world. But when she turns back, he is gone. A wave of panic washes over her as she scans the throng of people. She realizes the jostling of the crowd must have separated them. Lost and alone, she wonders what she should do. Her voice, small against the noise of the festival, calls out his name. Gene. She stands amidst the crowd, trying to catch a glimpse of him in the sea of faces. Suddenly, someone collides with her from behind. A young man with light hair stumbles, muttering an apology as he complains about the impact. Rita flinches away, overwhelmed by the reek of alcohol. His complaint dies on his lips as his eyes fixate on her wrist. He murmurs, his expression shifting. That's a pretty fine bracelet you've got there, lady. Rita instinctively clutches her arm, a new sense of alarm growing. A man aggressively grabs Yano Kane's arm, demanding she show him what she is hiding. She cries out for him to stop, but a flicker of surprise crosses her face as she realizes his grip doesn't actually hurt. Before the assailant can press further, King Eugene intervenes, pulling Yano into his arms and away from the man. Looking down at her with concern, he asks if she is all right, explaining that he had been searching for her. She looks up at him, her face flushed with a mixture of relief and embarrassment. She apologizes for wandering around while he was looking for her, addressing him formally as King Eugene. Her apology trails off as the realization hits her. She let her guard down. Her attention snaps back to her former assailant, who now cowers in terror at the sight of the king. The terrified man immediately drops into a deep, frantic bow, stammering apologies and begging for forgiveness. He is met with King Eugene's cold gaze. The king questions aloud if the town permits barbarians to harass the defenseless. The man swears he will never do it again, and the king sternly tells him to make sure of it. From the surrounding crowd, fearful whispers arise, identifying the king as the cruel wolf. With the matter resolved, King Eugene turns his attention back to Yano. He takes her hand, telling her it is time to go. As they walk away, she glances back, confused by the crowd's fearful reaction after he had just saved her. She quietly agrees. As they continue on, she apologizes again, feeling responsible for the scary incident. She explains that it was her fault for getting lost after her bodyguards told her to stay close, and that her actions made them look bad. He reassures her, saying not to worry because he is used to the way people look at him. His words trigger a memory for Yano of Hashina-kun, who once confessed he grew his bangs long because he was afraid he looked scary. She realizes with a pang that the king's situation must be far more complex. Sensing her melancholy, he sits with her and gently tells her not to be sad. He smiles, promising that the day is not over yet. He guided their carriage down an unfamiliar road, one Yano Kane was certain they hadn't taken when leaving the castle. They soon arrived at a rustic building surrounded by lush greenery. As the sweet and sour scent of grapes filled the air, she realized with a start that he had brought her to a grape orchard and winery. King Eugene turned to her, a gentle smile on his face, and reminded her that she had mentioned liking wine. Yano was taken aback, realizing he must have planned this part of their outing based on their earlier conversation. In the distance, an older couple waved enthusiastically, calling out his name. The couple, an older man and woman, welcomed them with broad, happy smiles, saying they had been waiting. Yano watched them, struck by the realization that this was the first time she had ever seen anyone smile at the sight of King Eugene. The woman greeted Yano warmly, identifying her as the king's fiancée. Yano introduced herself as Rita Scrine and apologized for the sudden visit, but the woman insisted she feel at home, while the man expressed how happy they always were to have the king visit. Yano was touched by their genuine friendliness. Later, she found a moment to speak with the woman alone. Yano confessed that she found their warm welcome strange, explaining that it seemed everyone in the city was scared of the king and thought poorly of him. The woman looked at her knowingly and asked if she was wondering why they weren't afraid of the cruel wolf. The woman's expression softened as she answered the unspoken question. King Eugene had saved them. She began to explain that a few years ago, the water in their region had started to dry up. At first, they didn't even notice, but after a year passed, their crops simply stopped growing. Ilbert continues to speak with reverence about King Eugene, explaining that when the king learned of a problem, he immediately launched a personal investigation. He soon discovered the cause and dealt with it, leading Ilbert to view him as a personal messiah. An elderly villager agrees, stating he has admired the king ever since he learned how hard he works for the people. His wife adds that King Eugene is very kind, and that it's not just their orchard, but all the farms that function thanks to His Majesty's efforts, yielding bountiful harvests. The woman chuckles, conceding that the king's face can be a little intense, which seems to puzzle Ilbert. Meanwhile, she presents Rita with a glass of wine and a plate of cheese, explaining that the wine is from last year's grapes. A bit sour, but refreshing and not too strong. Overwhelmed by the gesture, Rita smiles warmly, thinking to herself what a luxury it is. She expresses her sincere gratitude, deciding to accept their hospitality. Her hand reaches for the glass of wine, but just before she takes a sip, a realization stops her. She turns to Ilbert with a worried expression, remembering that as Rita, she is supposed to be only 19 years old. She quietly asks him if it is still acceptable for her to drink. Ilbert reassures her that it's no problem, explaining that she is considered a fully grown adult in this country. Immensely relieved, Rita whispers a thank you and resolves to try the wine. She takes a sip, and her eyes light up with delight. She exclaims that it's incredibly good, perhaps the most delicious wine she has ever tasted. Her enthusiastic praise brings a smile to Ilbert's face. He replies that he could ask for no higher compliment and encourages everyone to help themselves to the food. He then turns his attention fully to Rita, observing her with a knowing look. He points out that she's already flushed and gently advises her to enjoy the wine in moderation, even though it tastes good. She apologizes, flustered, explaining that the wine was just so delicious. The kind villagers smile, offering to let them buy some to take back to the castle. Overjoyed, she blurts out her thanks. As she expresses her gratitude, the villagers observe the pair, remarking that they've never seen King Eugene look so kind and gentle. They wish the couple a happy marriage, certain that with a wonderful girl like Rita, His Majesty is in good hands. Hearing this, Ilbert turns away, a blush creeping up his neck. His reaction only makes Rita more flustered. "Don't look at me right now," she stammers, before quickly excusing herself. She glances at the back of his neck, wondering if his flush is simply from the wine, or perhaps something else. Later, as their carriage departs from the village, Rita looks out the window and sincerely thanks him for everything that day. She turns back to him, a happy expression on her face, and adds that both the city and the winery were wonderful. Ilbert, still using his alias of King Eugene, quietly acknowledges her words. He then moves closer, his gaze soft. He confesses that he is grateful the queen set this up, adding with a smile, "I had fun too." He leans in, closing the distance between them. Her eyes flutter shut, a deep blush on her cheeks as she whispers, "Me too." The intimate moment leaves her breathless and flustered as the carriage continues its journey through the woods. As the journey wears on, drowsiness overtakes her, and she gently leans her head against his shoulder. He looks down at her sleeping form, his expression tender. A private thought crosses his mind, addressing her by her true name, "Sleep tight, Yano-san." The carriage recedes into the distance, carrying them away. At what is declared to be their engagement party, King Eugene stands on a balcony and addresses the assembled nobles. He swears that with Rita Scrine as his future queen, he will lead the country down a path of glory and prosperity. Below, Yano Kane, posing as Rita, listens with a tense expression. In response to his declaration, the crowd of silhouetted figures erupts into thunderous applause. Hearing the powerful ovation, Yano Kane internally remarks on its intensity. Beside her, a young man with light hair wonders aloud why Duke Scrine is acting so smug, despite his connection to the royal family being merely technical. Her thoughts are interrupted by a gentle voice. The real Rita Scrine approaches, calling her Wani-sama, and smiling warmly. She suggests they find time to talk after she finishes greeting the guests. As guests offer their congratulations, an older noblewoman tells King Eugene she hopes they can depend on each other, praising Yano as a wise and courageous woman. Nearby, Duke Scrine expresses his relief, noting that while he thought the marriage would be later, the country's future is now secure. Yano watches, thinking that the king must have fallen for her at first sight. She marvels at the king's incredible ability to remember details about everyone, a stark contrast to her own growing confusion. She notes that she looks nothing like the real Rita's portrait and wishes for the convenience of her old office job, where she had lists of employees with photos attached. The weight of the situation presses down on her. It feels as if everyone is walking on eggshells to avoid the king's wrath, and she can physically feel the tension in the air, trapping her like threads in a web. Her spiraling thoughts are cut short when King Eugene speaks directly to her. He advises her not to try so hard, lest she be too tired to dance later, and offers her the chance to retire for the evening. The sudden realization that he intends to dance with her leaves her flustered, and she quickly stammers that she can still go on. An older nobleman with a large mustache then approaches, congratulating the royal couple. He turns his attention to Yano, smiling as he remarks on the beautiful lady she has grown up to be. A wave of confusion hits her as she wonders who this man could possibly be. The man's familiar words trigger a surge of panic. She realizes he must have known the Real Rita before, a detail no one had prepared her for. When he notices her hesitation and asks if something is wrong, she can only stammer, her mind screaming, "Oh no." She freezes as King Eugene steps in, addressing the nobleman as Count Yornal and asking how he knows Lady Rita. Flustered, she quickly interjects that they don't truly know each other and that she simply failed to recognize him. In response, Count Yornal clarifies with a smile that his acquaintance is distant. He He merely visited Duke's shrine long ago and saw the lady from afar when she was very young. A wave of relief washes over her. She manages a nervous laugh, thinking to herself that it was a close call and feeling immense gratitude that the man wasn't someone who truly knew the real Rita. As they move on, King Eugene thanks her for her help with the Count. She questions what he means, a sudden realization dawning on her. He must have mentioned the Count's name on purpose, knowing she wouldn't recognize it. He offers only an enigmatic, non-committal reply. Who knows? His ambiguity confirms her suspicion. She decides to interpret his action as a hidden kindness, telling him she'll see it that way. The king simply permits her to do as she wishes. Her thoughts are interrupted by a familiar voice. Duke's shrine has arrived, accompanied by a young woman who is Yano's perfect double, the real Rita. The Duke thanks them for coming, addressing his daughter as Layla. Layla takes her hands, expressing relief to see her doing well and stating she wouldn't miss her own daughter's big day. She then addresses Yano as Wani-sama, her older sister, and asks if she's all right, causing Yano's composure to crack. Noticing her distress, Duke's shrine leans in to check on her. She quickly reassures him she is fine, understanding his question is not just about her health, but whether her identity has been compromised. Meanwhile, King Eugene formally thanks Duke's shrine for agreeing to the sudden marriage. He then turns to Layla, noting they haven't met, and mentioning he'd heard she was terribly sick. As Layla cheerfully confirms her recovery, Yano realizes with a chill that everyone, the king, the Duke, is knowingly pretending, playing along with the elaborate deception. King Eugene grants Lady Rita permission to speak with Layla. Turning to her double, Rita apologizes, explaining that she has found no new information about returning to her own world. Layla confirms this was her question, and Rita affirms it, adding that she's tried everything she can imagine. Hearing this, a sudden, private thought surfaces in Rita's mind. This means she gets to stay. A faint, almost unconscious smile touches her lips. She's immediately startled by her own realization, her eyes widening in shock at the unexpected desire. Layla, noticing her friend's sudden change in demeanor, asks what is wrong. Rita quickly dismisses her concern, insisting it's nothing and that they should head back. As they turn, a commotion erupts nearby. A nobleman has fallen to his knees before King Eugene, a spilled glass of dark wine staining the polished floor. The man cries out in terror, apologizing profusely. The man remains prostrate, his face a mask of fear as he continues to beg for forgiveness. King Eugene simply looks down at him, his expression hidden in shadow. He continues to plead, begging his majesty for forgiveness. King Eugene's voice cuts through the tension, ordering the man to stop apologizing and get up. Rita watches the scene, confused, and asks what happened. An unseen attendant explains that the man, Baron Yaret, spilled wine on King Eugene's clothes. The surrounding nobles begin to whisper amongst themselves. They pity the Baron, certain he will face a harsh punishment for embarrassing the cruel wolf in public. One remarks on how frightening the king is. Observing the gossiping nobles, Rita feels a sense of déjà vu. She internally notes that King Eugene wouldn't punish someone for something so trivial. She has seen this before. The nobles are reacting with the same fear as the villagers once did. She observes the king, confirming her suspicion. He isn't angry at all. It seems most people in the country have simply misunderstood him as a terrifying ruler. She recalls the fearful gossip, with one person expressing relief that their daughter wasn't the one marrying the fearsome, cruel wolf. Her train of thought is broken as a young man with light hair rushes forward, calling out urgently to Lady Rita and Renissima. Despite his call, her attention remains fixed on the spilled wine glass on the floor. A realization dawns on her. What that old couple told her before must be true. The man moves past her, directly to King Eugene. He places his hands on the king's cheeks, forcing his expression into a smile as he asks for forgiveness. A startled King Eugene asks what for, while Rita watches from behind. Still holding the king's face, the man instructs him not to speak to others with such a grimace, advising him to relax and adopt a kind expression. Rita looks on, taken aback by the man's audacity. He continues his instructions to the king, telling him not to worry and to just show the man on the floor a little smile. He then glances at Rita, asking if she is angry. Turning his attention to the terrified Baron Yaret, who remains prostrate on the floor, the man offers reassurance. He states plainly that King Eugene is not angry and is not a king to be feared. This bizarre public display does nothing to calm the court. Instead, a wave of frantic whispering erupts among the nobles. Rita stands frozen in the middle of it all, her eyes wide with shock. The gossip swirls around her as the nobles misinterpret the situation entirely. They whisper that she has done something rude to the king, speculating that she might be executed. A wave of panic hits Rita as she realizes she's the center of their fear, thinking she has made a terrible mistake. Meanwhile, King Eugene, partially hiding his face with his hand, lets out a soft, private chuckle, seemingly amused by the chaos unfolding before him. He felt a tap on his shoulder from his companion, drawing his attention. The king glanced down, a faint smile playing on his lips as he murmured his agreement. He then turned his gaze towards the terrified noblewoman, acknowledging her with a calm, "You're right, Lady Rita." The unexpected address caused Rita to flinch visibly. His companion, still flustered, turned to him and asked if any of the wine had gotten on his own clothes. The king calmly reassured him, stating that he had apologized more than enough and shouldn't worry. The man sheepishly admitted that just a little bit had splashed on him. With a gentle expression, King Eugene offers to prepare a change of clothes for Rita. Noting that he also needs to change, he suggests they go together. Much to the surprise of Rita and her maid, Tilda, as they proceed, a crowd of noble women immediately swarms Rita. Their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. They bombard her with questions, demanding to know how she managed to change His Majesty's heart and, unbelievably, make the famously stoic King Eugene smile. The women continue to press in on her, one urgently warning her to hurry or the king will leave her behind. Overwhelmed by the intense questioning, Rita can only stammer, unsure how to respond. She shrinks back, her face beaded with sweat, completely flustered by the sudden onslaught of attention. Some time later, Rita sits in a quiet room, looking utterly drained. Her maid, Tilda, brings her a glass of water. Taking it gratefully, Rita sighs, relieved that the chaotic party is finally over. She reflects on the day's events. It was certainly an ordeal, but she feels a sense of accomplishment, hoping that her actions helped improve the public perception of King Eugene, even if just a little. A sudden, horrifying realization strikes her. She pinched the king's cheeks in public and must apologize. Just then, King Eugene himself enters the room. Rita panics internally, realizing that her familiar action was definitely not something a fiancé should do. He approaches her, his expression unreadable, and asks what is wrong. As Rita stammers, he begins to speak about the party. His tone shifts to one of seriousness. He looks down at her and says, "Come, let's talk in private," gesturing towards an empty, formal sitting room. Rita's mind floods with dread. She concludes that his request to speak alone can only mean one thing. She has done something terribly wrong. She immediately bows low in a frantic apology, exclaiming that she completely forgot their respective statuses and acted inappropriately. King Eugene, however, simply gestures toward the room and invites her to come inside. He dismisses her apology, telling her it's nothing to worry about. Rita's mind races with anxiety, fearing he might want to cancel their engagement. To her surprise, the king clarifies that he actually wanted to thank her. He explains that Baron Yarrett was so terrified of him that he couldn't speak, and her intervention actually helped resolve the situation. He expresses gratitude that she came to his rescue, leaving Rita utterly stunned. He continues, assuring her that she could never do anything terrible and that, in fact, he was overjoyed by her actions. A wave of immense relief washes over Rita. Thankful that she hadn't made a terrible mistake, she lets out a quiet sigh. In that quiet moment, the realization of his kindness fully sinks in. Her perception of him shifts entirely. Looking at the man before her, she understands with certainty that he is not the cruel wolf his reputation makes him out to be. After he gestures for her to proceed, she musters her courage and asks him directly, why is it that people call him the cruel wolf? He confirms that they both wish to speak about the same topic. His story begins 5 years ago. At the age of 21, his father, the previous king, passed away. As the sole heir, he immediately ascended the throne. He recalls the immense pressure, trying to live up to the legacy of the king who had united the country and the harsh requirements that came with his new position. He continues, recounting a painful betrayal. A minister whom he had trusted completely, viewing him as his right hand, abused his authority. The man illegally obtained iron mint for the country, secretly selling a portion while using the rest to manufacture illicit weapons. The king admits his anger with himself for being so foolish, especially since he knew the other nobles did not truly respect or accept him as their ruler at the time. King Eugene's gaze narrows as he recalls the events that followed a pivotal decision. He remembers having every single person involved with the corrupt minister arrested and brought to justice. He resolved then that all who committed wrongdoings under his rule would suffer, regardless of their status, rank, or personal relationship to him. This harsh stance earned him a fearsome reputation. He explains to Yano that ever since that day, he has been called the cruel wolf, having seized the opportunity to become a king even colder and more impervious than the last. Yano listens quietly, simply acknowledging his story. Hearing his confession, she finally understands. Yano recalls Ilberd telling her that King Eugene was fighting while carrying an invisible burden, and realizes this must be what he meant. The weight of his self-imposed isolation strikes her, and her hand clenches into a tight fist. She questions why someone so kind and clumsy would choose to suffer all by himself, becoming a cruel king just to protect his country. Her thoughts drift to his past self in high school. She remembers how much it pained Hashina to scare anyone, so much so that he grew his hair out to hide his face. This memory solidifies her feelings, and tears well in her eyes. She realizes she loves him, whether he is Hashina-kun or King Eugene. She loves his clumsiness, his kindness, his nobility as king, every single thing about him. As she comes to this realization, Eugene continues his political analysis, unaware of her emotional breakthrough. He concedes that while his methods work for now, if he continues treating everyone with such distance, a rift will form and the country will eventually fall to ruin. He looks at her, his expression softening as he bows his head. He admits that she has just made him realize he needs to build a new kind of relationship with everyone, the nobles, the people, and even other countries. Inspired, Yano declares that she doesn't want others to see him as the cruel wolf, and offers to help if anyone tries to betray him. She immediately gets flustered by her own forwardness, but Eugene simply smiles. He thanks her, admitting that with her by his side, he feels like he can do anything. He watched as Yano stood before him, a blush coloring her cheeks. Internally, she was in turmoil. Now that she had finally realized she loved him, her emotions were overflowing. She knew, however, that she couldn't confess properly until she cleared up the misunderstanding from their past. Breaking the silence, he asked what she had discussed with Rita Scrine during the party, correctly guessing the topic was about returning to her own world. He then admitted that he, too, had been searching for a method while she was there, but had found nothing yet. She took in his words, a slight sweat forming on her brow. A wave of gratitude washed over her. She knew she should thank him for looking into it on her behalf. Before she could voice her thanks, he gently placed a hand on her head, his touch silencing her. He stated plainly that she needed to return to her world, and he would try to find a way as soon as he could, urging her not to protest. Yano could only manage a small, surprised sound. Flustered by his promise, her face flushed red. A sudden realization struck her. She had kept Tilda waiting all this time and really should get back to her room. Turning to depart, she wished him a good night. He responded in kind, thanking her for her work that day and telling her she did a great job. As the door slid shut behind her, she didn't walk away. Instead, she slumped to the floor, her back against the heavy wood. A sad realization settled in her heart. He was so certain that they would part ways someday. An ornate door clicks shut, leaving a grand, empty room in silence. Just outside, Ilbert Landry offers a gentle smile, promising that he will try to find a way for her as soon as he can. She turns away from the door, her head bowed. She knows that if she had stayed with him any longer, she would have started crying. Her thoughts drift. She considers the idea of going back to the moment Hashina-kun confessed to her, but then dismisses it. No, she would need to go back even further than that. Her mind travels back 7 months before the confession. As a student, she stands outside the classroom for the beautification committee, recalling the warning she received about a scary guy with long bangs and a mean stare who would be inside. With a flicker of apprehension, she peeks through the crack of the slightly ajar door. Inside, she sees him, Hashina-kun. He feels so intimidating. She nervously introduces herself as Yano. He turns, his expression unreadable, and apologizes, saying he didn't mean to scare her. She can only manage a quiet agreement. As he turns away, she thinks to herself that nobody would believe his apology when he acts so frightening. He then asks if she came to discuss committee work. Startled, she confirms that's why she's there. He simply acknowledges her, leaving her standing there, uncertain. He moves to a desk and sits down, facing away from her. She wonders if he did it so she wouldn't have to see his face, as a way to not scare her. Or perhaps she considers he's just always like that. She has a realization, thinking to herself that if he is just a normal person, then she is sorry for her initial reaction to him. She tentatively calls out to him. Following her thought, she extends her hand towards Hashina in a gesture of peace. He looks down, surprised as she takes his hand. He asks what she is doing, and she firmly tells him to shake it. As their hands clasp, she explains with a bright smile that it's a greeting for a new colleague. Hashina's bewildered expression makes her think he sees her as a weirdo. But then, she notices he's smiling, realizing he's just a normal boy after all. He finally agrees, saying it's nice to meet her. The memory jumps forward to 5 months before the confession. On a hot day, Yano sips a drink and exclaims how good the tea is. As they walk, she remarks on the heat, and then tells Hashina she was surprised to learn he likes Foxy too. He seems confused, so she clarifies that she just likes the tea. With a playful wink, she insists that he'll grow to like Foxy once he sees it and offers to show him, causing him to let out a flustered noise. They compare the small fox charms that came with their drinks. Yano cheerfully notes that they match, then muses that his looks a little cuter. Hashina disagrees, stating they look completely the same, but Yano insists they're different. He suddenly takes her charm, declaring it's his, and offers his own in return. With a sly smile, he says he likes hers better and suggests they can just swap. Hashina tells Yano not to worry and that they should get going. She quietly thanks him as they prepare to leave. Her mind, however, drifts back to a different matter, a lingering thought about the possibility that the king might have given her the small fox. She thinks to herself that if that were true, she would be overjoyed. But the kindness of Hashina, standing right beside her, feels different and is difficult for her to fully comprehend. Her thoughts drift to a memory from 2 months before confession. Hashina had called out to her, running to catch up. It was these small, simple gestures that she found herself drawn to. In that memory, Hashina and a friend observe her from a distance. His friend noted that Yano, who was in charge of making posters, looked troubled, acknowledging that it was hard work. Hashina simply agreed. She had approached Hashina, telling him to go home first since her work might take a while. She then declared her intention to help the others, unable to leave them to struggle. A surprised Hashina asked her why she felt the need to. After she finished, a junior student thanked her profusely for the help, calling her senpai. Yano waved it off, telling her not to worry about it. Walking away, a gentle smile graced her lips as she thought to herself how glad she was to have been able to help. Her quiet moment was interrupted when Hashina suddenly appeared, startling her. He simply said, "Good work." She was taken aback, realizing he had waited for her. She asked why he didn't just help out, but he explained that his presence would have intimidated the other students into silence. Before she could fully react, the junior student she had helped ran up, calling out with another question, causing Yano to gulp in surprise. She stammers, trying to call back the junior student who has just fled in a panic. Sorry. It's nothing," the girl calls out as she disappears. Hashina observes calmly, remarking that this is what always happens. He then turns to Yano, a faint, practiced smile on his face, and tells her not to worry about it. It happens all the time, he explains, so he is used to it. Her expression fills with concern. She realizes that while he claims to be used to it, he is clearly hurt. A sense of helplessness washes over her. She feels she can't do anything to help if Hashina himself won't try to change his situation. "Why don't you try to make anyone understand you?" she asks him directly. The memory shifts to an earlier time, 1 week before the confession. 2 of Yano's classmates approach her with serious expressions. One of them, after a moment's hesitation, asks directly if she and Hashina Hiroto are truly friends. Yano is taken aback by the abruptness of the question. In response to her surprise, one of the girls clarifies that this isn't a sudden whim. They have apparently been curious about her relationship with Hashina for ages. Her friend then voices their true fear, her gaze intense. "Look," she begins, "we think Hashina might be threatening you to spend time with him or something." Yano can only react with a stunned, "Huh?" She immediately questions why they would ever think such a thing. Her friend explains that Hashina has a frightening reputation. Everyone says he's crazy. To prove her point, she recounts seeing him with a third-year student behind the gymnasium just yesterday. The older student looked so pale that she was convinced Hashina was threatening them. Yano attempts to offer a rational explanation, suggesting they were likely just doing committee work, but her friend dismisses this, arguing that simple committee duties wouldn't leave someone looking as if they were about to cry. The other friend adds that the situation has escalated. People have started speaking ill of Yano as well due to her constant association with Hashina. They warn her that if she continues, she'll be the subject of strange rumors herself. "We wouldn't want that. They insist. We're your friends." Her hand tightens into a fist. Internally, she recognizes that her friends are genuinely worried for her, and she appreciates their concern. The thought solidifies in her mind. She must clear up Hashina's undeservedly bad reputation. However, she immediately understands that this is not a task she can accomplish by herself. Despite her inner turmoil, she puts on a bright smile for her friends. "Thanks for worrying about me," she says cheerfully, "but I'm fine." Her internal thoughts betray her confident facade as she desperately wonders what to do, admitting to herself that she has no idea how to solve the problem. She was filled with a deep sense of regret, thinking back to her conversation with her friends. She should have told them. She lamented internally, exactly how she felt about Hashina-kun back then. The thought triggers a specific memory. She was rushing down a school hallway. Books clutched her chest. A small gasp escaped her as she nearly collided with Hashina. Her mind, however, was elsewhere, preoccupied with the fact that her next lesson was in a different classroom and she needed to hurry. In a memory, Yano Kane watches as Hashina Hiroto walks away. She calls out his name, her expression one of gentle concern. Her confusion is palpable as she quietly questions the moment, her voice barely a whisper. The memory gives way to the present, where Yano stands in a doorway, her face clouded with worry. A classmate spots her and calls out her name cheerfully, but Yano's thoughts are elsewhere, wondering if Hashina had just ignored her. Her friends are oblivious to her inner turmoil. One of them proudly recounts to another how she managed to tell Hashina that Yano wouldn't be hanging out with him anymore, as if doing her a favor. The revelation shatters Yano's composure. Tears streaming down her face, she confronts her friend, demanding to know why she would do such a thing. She cries out that she had told them she was fine, questioning how her friend, who is just a friend, could make such a decision on her own. The outburst creates a rift, leaving the three of them standing in a strained, distant silence. In the time that follows, Yano is consumed by the awkwardness that has grown since the day of the confession. She can't bring herself to face Hashina, and even their brief encounters at committee meetings are strained. There have been no texts. She realizes this situation cannot continue, as it's damaging her relationships with both Hashina and her friends. She knows she must talk to someone, but settling things with either party will not be easy. As this thought solidifies, her phone suddenly buzzes. A new message has arrived from Hashina-kun, asking her to come to the backyard. She looks up, startled. Her expression transforms into one of hopeful determination. Realizing the message is from him, she immediately dashes off to meet him. She finds Hashina waiting. He apologizes for summoning her so suddenly. Before she can even ask what he wanted, he looks her directly in the eyes and makes a stunning declaration. He is in love with her. She stands frozen, a blush creeping across her face as Hashina Hiroto apologizes for the suddenness of his confession. He then reveals that one of her friends had actually told him to stay away from her, leaving her utterly speechless. He continues, explaining that despite the warning, he felt he had to tell her his feelings anyway. The realization hits her. Hashina likes her too. But her mind immediately flashes to her friends, knowing the misunderstanding between them all has not yet been resolved. Her thoughts spiral into a panic. What should she do? What should she say? She believes that if she accepts his confession now, the same drama with her friends will just happen all over again. Yet, she also feels a sense of finality that if they part ways now, it will be for good. Overwhelmed and lost in her internal conflict, she can only manage to stammer out a quiet, pained sorry. Hashina's expression shifts, his eyes widening in surprise at her response. Her mind races in confusion at his reaction, a horrifying thought dawning on her. Did he interpret her apology as an answer to his confession? Despite the apparent rejection, Hashina forces a smile and says he's still glad he was able to tell her how he felt. A silent scream echoes in her thoughts. She knows she needs to say something to correct the misunderstanding, but she is frozen. Her feet feel rooted to the spot. She cares about her friends, but what could she possibly say in this impossible situation? As she stands there, unable to speak, she berates herself. She is a coward, unable to choose Hashina over her friends in that critical moment. Reflecting on this memory, she recalls the aftermath. Soon after that day, Hashina transferred to another school. She never wanted to hurt him, yet she ended up being the one who hurt him most of all. The painful conclusion settles in her mind. Of course, Hashina thinks she turned him down. From his perspective, there was no other way to interpret her actions. Alone with her thoughts, Yano Kane grapples with a difficult realization. No matter how many times she tries to sort through her feelings, she can't help but think she's being too selfish. Her eyes well up with tears as she finally admits to herself that, after all, she has fallen in love with the same person all over again. The conviction strengthens within her. She must apologize for what happened back then. She needs to talk to him and clear everything up. Her mind flashes back to a memory of that very confession, a moment where she had desperately told Hashina that she wanted to redo. Pulled back to the present, her hand tightens on a door handle, the wood creaking under the pressure as she takes a steadying breath. She knows it might be awfully selfish of her, but the thought of returning to her old world without doing anything is unbearable. It would result in more than mere regrets. Her thoughts turn to Hashina-kun. She acknowledges that she can't change the fact that she hurt him in the past, but she still has time with him now. As she thinks this, the image of Hashina from her world seems to blur into the face of Ilbert. A wave of determination washes over her. She really has to tell him. Even if she can't confess her feelings, she must at least clear up the misunderstanding about what her sorry meant back then. She feels certain that if she can accomplish that, she'll be fine, even if she has to return to her old world. Wiping a tear from her eye, she firms her resolve. Honestly, that isn't all she wants to do. If Hashina-kun wishes to send her home, she will gladly go. But she has other tasks, clearing up the misunderstanding at the confession and supporting King Eugene. Those are the things she can do. Her train of thought is interrupted by a memory. Not her own, but Hashina's. He recalls a junior student promising to help Yano-san if anyone ever tried to betray her again. As the memory surfaces, Hashina thinks to himself that something felt slightly off with Yano, a thought that is cut short by a sudden, sharp cough. He clutched his hand to his chest, a faint blush warming his face as he wrestled with the thought. There was no way she could be in love with him. Was there? This overwhelming feeling had taken root from the very moment their eyes first met. He remembered her gaze, so direct and clear, a stark contrast to his own withdrawn nature. He had always been used to being alone, but a secret part of him had always yearned for someone. Yano seemed to sense this, always reaching out to him. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. She would look him straight in the eyes and laugh while they talked, seeing past his outward appearance with her own sparkling gaze, and never hesitated to offer a helping hand to anyone in trouble. Even now, after being summoned to his country, she hadn't changed in the slightest. She was still just as reliable, inspiring, and beautiful. To him, every single part of her was radiant and perfect. This perfection was precisely why he felt such conflict. No matter how much he loved her, he knew he couldn't selfishly tie her down here. She had people worried about her back in her own world, and she would eventually return. He turned away, his resolve hardening. Though he honestly wanted to confess his feelings to her again, he knew he couldn't burden her with that knowledge. His duty was clear. All he could do for Yano-san was help her find a way back home and keep her safe until that day came. He gripped a small object in his hand, a sharp glint in his eyes as he commanded himself. Don't you dare forget that, Eugene. Within the castle walls, nobles exchange the latest gossip. They speak of how the infamous cruel wolf, King Eugene, was publicly scolded by his new fiancée. One confirms that the king simply smiled and forgave her, leading another to speculate that he has finally opened up to someone. Meanwhile, the subject of their conversation, Yano Kane, stares in disbelief at a document. It sensationally declares that a goddess has appeared, won the king's heart, and will bring peace to the nation. She is utterly aghast, wondering what in the world she is reading. Seated with a cup of tea, she processes the situation. It's clear the scene at the engagement party has become rampant gossip among the servants. She internally questions the absurd rumor that she, the miraculous fiancée, has somehow tamed the wild beast known as the king. Her maid, Tilda remarks that she doesn't find it entertaining. She explains that people love gossip, so it's no surprise such a strange story has spread so far. Tilda calmly states that this is simply part of the fate of being the king's fiancée, and there's nothing to be done, much to Yano's dismay. Yano looks away, troubled. She realizes with a sense of dread that if she were to become queen one day, the attention on her would only intensify, which she finds to be a troublesome prospect. She asks Tilda if people are truly saying these things. Tilda confirms they are, adding that it's inevitable people are interested in her now. She then shares another rumor, that since the party, King Eugene has seemed a little gentler. At this news, a faint blush appears on Yano's cheeks as her expression softens. Tilda continues, noting that because of this perceived change, the castle has received the highest number of requests for royal audiences it has ever seen. A new resolve forms within Yano. Though she finds the exaggerated praise for her a bit frightening, she decides she wants to spread stories of King Eugene's good qualities so that no one will call him the cruel wolf anymore. She realizes this must be why he is so busy, and she commits to learning what is expected of her as his fiancée. Seeing this change, Tilda remarks that she is glad to see Yano so full of ambition. Tilda's demeanor then shifts. With a bright but sharp smile, she offers a warning. Nobles are creatures who will not hesitate to stab you in the back. She advises Yano to be careful not to mess up. Yano, however, remains confident. She thanks Tilda for the compliment and affectionately pats her head, stating that she'll be fine as long as Tilda is by her side, even if Tilda herself were one of those backstabbers. She stares at the mountain of correspondence, asking Tilda if the pile has somehow grown even larger than the day before. Tilda confirms that the task will only grow if she delays. With a sigh, Yano agrees to continue the work they started, sorting through gifts and writing thank you letters for all the engagement congratulations. After a period of intense work, she throws her arms wide in celebration, triumphantly announcing that she is finally done. Her relief is short-lived as Tilda approaches with another towering stack of letters. When Yano asks what they are, Tilda explains they are invitations to tea parties from noble ladies all over the country. Tilda reminds her that they must also schedule her lessons with Ilbert Sama and report the finalized schedule to King Eugene. The sheer weight of her new responsibilities crashes down on her. Clutching an invitation, she feels overwhelmed by the never-ending demands of her new situation. She wonders aloud if noble ladies truly hold so many tea parties, musing that this is even more grueling than her old office job, and that socializing is now part of her duties. Just then, a door opens and Ilbert enters. Her eyes widen in shock and recognition as she exclaims, "King Eugene." The man, Ilbert, who is indeed the king, apologizes for not having found the time to speak with her. He glances at the stacks of letters, remarking that her hands are full and that he has also received many more invitations since their party. He then holds out a particular letter, informing her that it has arrived. Yano quickly tells him not to apologize and asks if he's taking a break, reassuring him that she is not so weak as to collapse for being a little busy. He clarifies that the letter is an invitation for both of them from Duke Quadriga. The king admits he has no personal desire to go, but cannot refuse as the Duke is a major donor to the nation's research facilities. He adds that the Duke specifically requested she accompany him. Upon hearing this, Yano's expression brightens, and she cheerfully agrees to join if it will be helpful. Ilbert Landry offers a confident smile, assuring Rita that his secretary will provide the remaining details later. With a simple "see you," he turns to depart, remarking on how reliable she is. After he leaves, Tilda approaches Rita, noting that they barely had a chance to talk. She prefaces her next comment by saying she doesn't mean to gossip, but observes that it appears both Rita and King Eugene care for each other deeply, adding her belief that the king came to the event just to see her. Rita looks away, offering only a hesitant maybe in response. The scene shifts to the night of Duke Quadriga's party, the grand estate illuminated under a starry sky, with an elegant invitation held in the foreground. Inside the bustling party, Rita is immediately surrounded by a pair of enthusiastic noblewomen. They bombard her with questions, eagerly asking how close she truly is with His Majesty and if it's true that she isn't afraid of the formidable King Eugene. Visibly overwhelmed by the sudden onslaught of attention, she stammers, attempting to placate the crowd by asking them to calm down so she can answer their questions one at a time. Her request is lost in the fervor. She realizes with dismay that the wall of noble ladies surrounding her is so dense she cannot even catch a glimpse of King Eugene. Having finally escaped, Rita leans against a wall in a quiet corridor, sighing in relief. She clutches her chest, thinking to herself that she is just an ordinary girl, not some legendary figure like Prince Shitoku who could handle so much attention at once. Her moment of peace is interrupted by a cheerful voice. Turning, she is startled to find Layla smiling brightly at her. Layla explains that she saw Rita leave the ballroom and decided to follow, playfully asking if she surprised her. Rita, wide-eyed, admits that she is, indeed, very surprised. She processes the encounter, asking if Layla was also invited to the party. Rita recalls Layla mentioning that she and the Duke would be staying on the mainland for a while. Layla confirms this, adding that her father is also in attendance, and she simply came along with him. Layla's attention then shifts to Rita's attire. She apologizes for staring, but explains that she couldn't help but admire how wonderful the dress looks on her. Caught off guard by the compliment, Rita offers a simple word of thanks. She holds up her wrist, where a delicate bracelet sparkles. Layla exclaims that the bracelet is as wonderful as her dress, and Rita confirms with a small smile that it was a present from King Eugene. Layla graciously accepts the compliment on her own dress, but her expression turns thoughtful as she repeats that King Eugene was the one who gave Rita the gift. Leaning in closer, she whispers, asking Rita if King Eugene had scolded her after the engagement party incident. Rita explains that she simply didn't want to be around people and had acted impulsively, perceiving the king as a scary man. Layla thanks her for her concern, but admits she still doesn't understand why Rita would act that way, no matter how hard she tried to comprehend it. A playful look crosses Layla's face as she suddenly asks if Rita is perhaps in love with King Eugene. Flustered, Rita insists that the king is not at all what people think he is, but Layla enthusiastically declares that she is rooting for her One-sama. She beams, adding that falling in love is a wonderful thing and that Rita looks even lovelier than before. When Rita questions her support, Layla confirms it with a cheerful, touched by her sister's genuine support. Rita looks at her, her expression softening as she murmurs Layla's name. Her playful demeanor shifts to one of seriousness. She asks Rita if her developing feelings mean that she can stop searching for a way to return her to her own world. The question throws Rita into turmoil. She internally admits she is torn, knowing that King Eugene believes she wants to return home. Yet, she finds herself unable to ask him to stop his search, hating her own indecisiveness on the matter. Voicing some of her conflict, Rita quietly asks what Layla would do if she were told to stop looking. Sensing her distress, Layla immediately apologizes, calling her own question mean. She then promises to continue her search, reassuring Rita to just mention it if she ever needs to know anything. Layla smiles brightly, reassuring the woman she believes to be Rita. She dismisses any concerns, explaining that if she stays at the manor forever, then Rita will be free to find her own true love instead of being with the king. From her perspective, it is no problem at all. Her words cause Yano to recall a past conversation. She remembers getting caught up in the moment and confessing her feelings for someone to the real Rita, and now she hopes it doesn't cause any problems. She grows flustered, remembering that while Rita couldn't exactly say she was opposed to the situation, she did say she was rooting for her. Her thoughts are interrupted as she stands on a balcony with Ilbert, who is addressed as King Eugene by his aide. The king supposes the noble ladies have tired her out, admitting that even he finds such events exhausting. Yano agrees, admitting she might be a little tuckered out. He looks at her with concern, noting that she doesn't seem like her usual self, and asking if exhaustion is all that's bothering her. He urges her to tell him if anything is ever worrying her, reminding her that he takes full responsibility for her well-being. Yano quickly insists she is fine. Despite her words, she hesitates. Internally, she realizes that since they are alone, this might be the perfect chance to talk to him about what's truly on her mind. Before she can speak, a sudden rustling from the nearby foliage startles them both, and Yano lets out a small shriek. Confused, she feels Ilbert's hand in her hair. He chuckles, explaining with amusement that she has leaves stuck in her hair. He leans in close, showing her the leaves he removed. Flustered by his proximity, Yano begins to thank him, her face flushing. Her words die in her throat as he moves even closer, his face just inches from hers. Her eyes widen in shock as her mind screams his title, King Eugene. She pulls back abruptly as Ilbert apologizes, explaining that he has removed the leaves from her hair. He tells her that he must go, but that she should take her time resting before heading inside. Flustered, she touches her lips, the near-intimate moment lingering in her mind. A few days later, at Duke Skrine's vacation home, whispers travel among the staff about how King Eugene has changed, as if a goddess is now by his side. Within the home, Layla listens to the gossip, remarking to her father that the talk is once again about King Eugene and Kane. She expresses her satisfaction, stating that Yano has performed far better than she ever hoped, and now they have nothing to worry about. Layla believes they can be proud, as the ones who orchestrated Yano's success. Her father, Duke Skrine, agrees with a pleased smile. He declares they can leave all the troublesome matters to their puppet and simply enjoy the fame and rewards. He admits he would have been happy if Yano had merely married the king without being exposed, but he never imagined she would improve their family's reputation so significantly. This success, he adds, also secures Layla's new life. Layla affirms that it is wonderful. However, beneath this calm facade, Layla is in turmoil. She internally screams that there are a ton of worries, trembling at the thought of what the cruel wolf would do if he discovered she had refused to marry him. She curses her own naivety for ever thinking she could simply pursue love. Her frantic thoughts continue. She knows they went to the trouble of summoning a look-alike, but she cannot comprehend how it led to this. She pictures Yano living a life of luxury, treated as royalty, receiving the finest dresses, jewelry, and even gifts from the supposedly heartless king. The memory of King Eugene's reaction from the day before only fuels her annoyance. She fumes internally, finding it unbelievable that Kane has actually fallen in love with him. Nearby, Her attendant, Tilda, looks on with a puzzled expression. As if summoned by her thoughts, Tilda suddenly announces that the king has arrived. Layla is shocked into silence, even more so when Tilda adds that Kane is with him. The creak of a nearby door opening punctuates the announcement. Peeking through the doorway, Layla sees Ilberd and Yano together. She is stunned by the gentle, affectionate expression on the king's face, an expression she never thought possible. A horrifying thought crosses her mind. Could he be in love with Yano, too? She continues to stare, realizing his gaze is nothing like it was at the engagement party. His eyes are so much kinder, filled with an affection she has never seen. The sight forces her to wonder if even the infamous cruel wolf is powerless against a woman. With a soft clack, a door opens, revealing a grand ballroom. Ilberd, Landry, and Yano, in her guise as Rita Scrine, peer inside, with Yano letting out a quiet gasp of awe at the sight. As she takes in the scene, her profile seems to momentarily align with that of her identical counterpart, Layla, who watches from a distance with a deeply troubled expression. Inside the opulent hall, Yano's face lights up with a smile as she spots King Eugene. Ilberd, standing beside her, lets out an audible click of his tongue in clear annoyance. He turns away slightly, addressing someone unseen to explain that his sister is resting for a while longer but will return soon. His attention returns to Yano as he observes the dancing couples. He remarks that the dance has already started and suggests that all the guests are curious about when His Majesty will finally take the floor. Yano looks up, startled, as Ilberd gazes at her with unwavering intensity. He states firmly that he has no intention of dancing with anyone but Lady Rita. He then offers to find a suitable partner for her if she wishes to dance, an offer which Yano meets with a polite smile and a simple, "No thanks." Watching this exchange, Layla is consumed by rage. She internally questions the interaction, thinking that by the rules of high society, he was supposed to ask her to dance so she could refuse. She wonders if his offer to find a partner was mockery, but then a realization dawns. What she saw was the face of a man truly in love with Rita Scrine. A slow, cunning smirk spreads across her face as she turns away. She understands now. The king has no interest in anyone who is not Rita Scrine. Her thoughts solidify into a firm resolution. She reflects that Kane was summoned to be sacrificed so she could avoid a cruel fate, not to live a more fortunate life. With this justification, she decides that if she and Kane simply switch places again, she will be the one to enjoy the king's love and a luxurious life in the castle. She apologized for being lost in thought, her mind racing. The question was no longer if she would switch places with Yano, but how. Simply asking her seemed like an impossible task. Her plans solidified further. Killing Yano was not an option. Instead, she would need to find a way to send her back to her old world. Just switching places wasn't enough. If Yano remained in this world, someone would eventually figure out what they had done. With her scheme taking shape, she turned to her father, a cunning smile playing on her lips. "Hey, father," she began, her voice sweet. "You know, I was just thinking." Her father listened, his expression serious as he touched his chin. He seemed to understand her implication immediately. "All right," he conceded. "If you want it so badly, then let's find that person." He continued, expressing his misguided pride, overjoyed that his daughter was such a compassionate and kind person. But Layla's thoughts were far from kind. All she needed now, she mused, was to get close enough to Yano to take her place at a moment's notice. A sinister smile spread across her face as she thought to herself, "I'm looking forward to it." At the main Scrine mansion, Duke Scrine reflects on recent events, wondering aloud what happened to a certain girl. In response, Tilda reports that she has found nothing. She then gives an excuse to depart, stating she has been asked to buy textbooks for Lady Rita's studies. Internally, she observes with some relief that it appears King Eugene also hasn't noticed that the woman by his side is not the real Rita. The Duke commends her work but leans in close, his voice dropping to a menacing tone. He reminds her of the consequences, asking if she understands what will happen should the impostor be exposed. Tilda quietly affirms that she does. As she walks away down a long hall, he calls out her name. Later, Tilda meets with Layla, who thanks her profusely. Layla beams, saying that everything is proceeding smoothly entirely because of Tilda's efforts. Tilda simply responds that she is honored. Layla continues, entrusting Tilda with the care of Rita Ronissima and telling her to stay safe. As Tilda departs, Layla privately muses that Tilda's overly serious demeanor irritates her, yet she genuinely hopes for her safe return. Her thoughts are shattered by a sudden, loud crash from outside. The sound startles Rita, who looks up in alarm. A moment later, an aide bursts through the door, shouting that he has an emergency report for her. Tilda was hurt in an accident on her way back from her trip. The aide delivers the same urgent news to King Eugene, who immediately takes command. He orders a field infirmary to be set up at once, and for a full report to be sent to his secretary. He then turns to a distraught Rita, grabbing her arm gently. The aide clarifies that a wheel suddenly fell off the carriage, and while Tilda and the coachman are hurt, their injuries are not serious. Rita anxiously asks if she can go to Tilda's side, and the king grants her permission. Finding Tilda resting and bandaged, Rita rushes to her. Tilda apologizes for the trouble, but presents the books she was sent to buy. Overcome with emotion, Rita cries out Tilda's name. exclaiming that the books are unimportant. She leans close, tears welling in her eyes, as she expresses her profound relief that Tilda's injuries weren't serious. Rita confesses that she wouldn't have known what to do if anything had happened, insisting that all that matters is Tilda's safety. She watches as Ilbert lifts the injured Tilda into his arms. He offers reassurance, promising to carry the maid and reminding Rita that their country has excellent doctors. With a trembling hand, she quietly agrees. The events of the previous day weigh heavily on her. She had barely slept. Lost in thought within her lavish room, she is startled back to the present by Ilbert, who physically nudges her to get her attention. He suggests they go check on Tilda. As they move through a grand hallway, she is startled to find him there, calling him King Eugene in her surprise. She asks why he has come, feeling it was her fault. He simply apologizes for surprising her. He looks at her with genuine concern, admitting he was worried about how she was coping with the situation. She can only murmur his royal title in response, still taken aback by his presence and his solicitude. Her attention is abruptly pulled away as she reaches a doorway. Tilda stands there, pale and with a bandage on her cheek, formally apologizing for being late with her morning greeting. Shocked to see the maid out of bed, Rita cries out her name. She rushes to Tilda's side, insisting that she must rest. Rita explains that the doctor confirmed her left arm is fractured and that another attendant will be assigned to her duties so she can recover. Tilda begins to protest, but Rita is firm. Tilda, however, stands her ground with surprising resolve. She declares that she is the only one capable of attending to Lady Rita and that she has arrived for duty. At that moment, a realization dawns on Rita. Tilda is pushing herself to work, despite her injuries, all to protect the secret of her true identity. Layla suddenly appears, calling out to Rita in surprise. She apologizes for barging in, explaining that she heard Tilda was injured and came because she was worried. Having overheard their conversation, she makes a startling proposal. She will become a handmaiden as well, to help Tilda. Ilbert looks troubled by the offer. He addresses Lady Layla, stating that while he appreciates the sentiment, he cannot permit the daughter of a duke to undertake such a task. Beside him, Tilda quietly asks Layla for her thoughts on the matter. In response, Rita leans in and whispers to Layla, reminding her of a past promise to help if she ever needed it. She adds that having Layla by her side would be a great asset as she begins to navigate high society. Layla's mind races. She internally questions if this is truly acceptable, her thoughts addressing Rita with the affectionate title of elder sister. Her resolve solidifies. With a bright smile, she tells Ilbert that she wants to repay Rita, even in a small way, and this is her chance. When Ilbert asks if she is certain, Layla enthusiastically confirms she will do her best. 2 days later, Layla stands in awe before an enormous closet filled with beautiful dresses. She marvels at the sight, announcing with pleasure that she is ready to begin her work today. Her enthusiasm is met with immediate protest from Rita, who had been hoping for something practical and easy to move in. Layla vehemently rejects this, shouting that as a future queen, Rita cannot continue to wear such plain clothing. A new voice declares her point precisely. The Dowager Queen appears, holding a magnificent gown. She states that if the next queen consort spends her days in shabby dresses, it will call King Eugene's dignity into question. The queen admits she has long wanted to dress Rita more lavishly, but Rita's preference for freedom of movement always stood in the way. Understanding the situation, the Dowager Queen officially tasks Layla with selecting Lady Rita's daily attire. Layla eagerly accepts, vowing to make her elder sister beautiful. Shortly after, Rita sits uncomfortably in a new, ornate dress, finding the stiff and poofy skirt makes it difficult to concentrate on her studies with Sir Ilbert. Just then, Tilda arrives with tea. Rita hesitantly asks Sir Ilbert if Layla's presence is acceptable. He assures her he doesn't mind and is quite interested himself. Turning to Layla with a warm smile, he thanks her, calling her a thoughtful and wonderful lady, and also expresses gratitude for the tea she brought. He watches Rita with a soft, knowing smile as Layla remarks that his perceptiveness is just like him. A blush spreads across Rita's cheeks, and she quickly denies that anything is amiss. His mind processes the new information, pondering why the existence of twins in the Scrine ducal house was never a topic of conversation. Layla, meanwhile, explains to a stunned Rita that it was her own request. She had asked their father to keep it a secret to prevent strange rumors about an ailing younger daughter from causing trouble for the family. As Rita internally expresses her relief at having Layla's help, Ilbert observes them, coming to an understanding of the family circumstances. Their lesson is interrupted by the arrival of the man they know as Ilbert, who now formally presents himself as King Eugene. He acknowledges Lady Layla's presence before turning to Rita, apologizing for the intrusion on her studies, but explaining that he has something important to tell her. He then delivers the news. A problem has arisen in a nobleman's western territory, requiring his attention. He announces his sudden departure for a journey that will last approximately 1 month, beginning the day after tomorrow. The abruptness of the announcement leaves Rita taken aback. A wave of loneliness washes over her at the thought of his absence. She quickly reminds herself that he is simply fulfilling his duties as king, though she cannot help but note that this will be the first time he has been gone for an extended period since her arrival. With a gentle smile, Yano Kane reassures the person on the other end of the conversation, likely the king, not to worry and to attend to his royal duties, affirming that she will be fine. She resolves to do her best. Elsewhere, Layla, acting as her double, confirms her readiness, stating she will let them know if anything comes up. Her resolve hardens. With 1 month to act, she recognizes that this is her chance. Meanwhile, Layla executes her part of the plan, attending a luncheon with young ladies for the Eindam and Fane families. She feels a bit nervous, surrounded by many unfamiliar faces. As she stands by a pillar, one of the other attendees recognizes her as the young lady from the West family, a detail she has clearly heard before. Another noblewoman offers a helpful suggestion for conversation, advising Layla to greet someone by saying it has been a while since the West family's evening ball. Layla is visibly relieved and grateful for the great idea, thinking it should be fine. Later, the event having concluded successfully, Layla returns to Yano Kane. Yano Kane welcomes her back and asks about the luncheon. Layla, beaming, reports that thanks to her, it went off without a hitch and expresses her happiness at being helpful. As they are speaking, a commotion draws their attention. A young nobleman is shouting in despair, lamenting that he must wait another month to meet the king after submitting his request for an audience 2 months ago. Yano Kane and Layla look on, wondering about the man's trouble. Seeing the man's distress, Layla suggests that Yano Kane go and hear what he has to say, proposing that she might be able to help. Yano Kane considers this, thinking she might be able to settle the issue just by listening, and resolves to talk to him. She steps toward the nobleman, who is immediately struck by her appearance, calling her a lovely maiden. With a calm demeanor, she introduces herself as Rita Scrine and asks for his name. He eagerly introduces himself as Azel Kala Traydan, the second son of the Traydan Viscountcy. Overcome with gratitude for her attention, he seizes her hand and kisses it, much to Yano Kane's flustered surprise. Layla quickly explains the man's predicament in short. He sent an audience request 2 months ago, received no reply, and upon coming to the castle directly, discovered the king had left for the west and his audience was now over a month away. As Layla speaks, Azel continues his dramatic plea to the heavens, leaving Yano Kane looking on with an uncertain expression. She listens as Azel dramatically declares her a true goddess. Making an exception, she offers to take his message to the king in his stead. However, as he continues to praise himself for his successful venture, she sighs internally. His rambling is less a message and more his life story. Realizing they could be there all day, she resolves to just ask him directly for the point. Before she can press him for details, she feigns surprise at the time. She reiterates that she can deliver his message to the king and will inform his majesty of his wish for an audience. Citing a prior engagement, she apologizes and states that she must take her leave, much to Azel's surprise. In a sudden, dramatic gesture, he takes her hand and gently kisses it. He proclaims that her beauty is as true in spirit as it is in form, and that his heart has never danced so. With a promise that they will meet again, he departs. She is left stunned and bewildered, questioning his parting words. The following day, she smiles to herself, recalling his dramatic promise to meet again. Just then, a voice announces that Lady Scrine has a visitor. She turns, startled, only to find Azel Traydan himself lunging toward her for an embrace. He catches her in his arms. With a look of clear annoyance, she demands to know what his business is there. Unfazed, he declares her shy for attempting to refuse his embrace of reunion. A man approaches Lady Rita, stating that he has not come for rigid formalities. She looks up at him, slightly puzzled by his directness. He leans in uncomfortably close, his face nearly touching her hair, and declares his intention to convey his feelings for her. Rita, taken aback, points out his proximity, but he insists it is the only way to show the sincerity of his heart. The man, Azel Kala Traydan, passionately confesses that he has fallen in love with Lady Scrine. He claims that since the day before, he has been unable to get her out of his mind, and the thought of her both warms his heart and causes him great pain. Internally, Rita reflects that while many women would be moved by such a sweet voice, she prefers King Eugene's low, sometimes cold but gentle tone. She then firmly rejects Azel, stating that while she appreciates his feelings, she cannot return them as she is engaged to his majesty. He remains undeterred, reminding her that she is not yet formally wed and vowing to make her his. He confidently asserts that she will soon see he is a better choice than the king before taking his leave. Left alone, Rita panics, her mind racing as she wonders what to do. The situation continues to weigh on her. She realizes with dread that Sir Azel will not give up, as he has been visiting her every other day with the same intensity. Her distress becomes apparent when her tutor, Ilberd, notices her let out a fifth heavy sigh. He apologizes for interrupting her thoughts, but asks if something has happened, pointing out that she seems downcast and worried. She hesitates for a moment, then decides to confide in him. A thought forms in her mind. Perhaps Sir Ilberd will know a good way to handle this persistent suitor. She begins to tell him about what has been happening recently. After hearing her account, Ilberd thoughtfully covers his mouth. He acknowledges that he knew Sir Azel was one to fall in love easily, but he never imagined the man would be bold enough to try and woo Miss Rita herself. He then reveals a startling fact. Sir Azel's business ventures should not be going well at all. This leads Ilbert to question Azel's true objective. Rita is stunned, questioning this revelation, as Azel himself had told her his businesses were doing splendidly. She considers Ilbert's words, remembering his lesson about hidden motives. The question hangs in her mind. Why would Azel lie to her, especially if the rumors of his financial struggles are true? Her tutor affirms her suspicion with a simple correct. He elaborates that dealing with nobility is a complex affair, as all of them harbor their own ambitions and desires. Just as he finishes his thought, a sharp knock echoes from the door. The door swings open to reveal the very subject of their conversation, Azel Kalak Tredan, who greets Lady Scrine with effusive praise for her radiance. Rita flinches in surprise as Ilbert mutters under his breath, "Speak of the devil." As an attendant announces the visitor for Your Majesty Rita, Ilbert steps between Azel and Rita. His demeanor shifts to one of cold authority as he questions Azel's presence, stating firmly that he is not supposed to be there. Caught off guard, Azel stammers in agreement and immediately beats a hasty retreat. He calls out an apology to Lady Scrine, fabricating an urgent matter that requires his immediate attention. She watches him go, a bewildered expression on her face. From a distance, her maid Tilda observes the interaction, pondering if something occurred between the two, noting that it almost seemed like Ilbert was avoiding Rita. As she walks through the gardens, Rita reflects on the encounter. She idly comments that while Ilbert may be more popular with the ladies than Azel, she personally finds King Eugene to be the most handsome man. Ilbert, overhearing her private thought, seems momentarily pleased. Meanwhile, Tilda reports to Lady Layla, informing her that Sir Azel has once again arrived as scheduled. Layla immediately questions Tilda's motives, asking why she is involving herself after taking such pains to avoid the king. Tilda insists she is only acting out of concern for both Layla and her sister, Rita. Her explanation is met with a chilling response. Layla's demeanor darkens as she utters Tilda's name, her tone dripping with suspicion as she begins to question what Tilda might be planning for Rita. She leans in, her face a mask of pleasantry hiding a venomous threat. Layla warns the terrified maid that if she dares to interfere again, it won't just be her arm that suffers. She chillingly suggests her next target could be someone Tilda cares about. Having just threatened her maid, Layla now sits composedly at a table, letting out a soft, knowing laugh. Across from her, a young noblewoman with a bandage on her cheek appears flustered. The woman asks for forgiveness for her impertinence before tentatively inquiring if the person she's referring to is perhaps Layla's older sister. Tilda, the maid, stands silently by Layla's side. Ilbert shares his suspicions with Rita, noting that Sir Azel's business ventures should not be thriving as they are, suggesting something else is happening behind the scenes. Rita immediately wonders if Azel is trying to use her. Ilbert, his expression somber, explains that since she is not yet the queen, the only thing he can do is offer his opinion to King Eugene. She mulls over his words, contemplating Azel's motives. She questions if he is simply trying to build connections like other nobles, or if he's laying the groundwork for when she becomes queen. She finds such mind games tiresome and resolves not to drag Ilbert into it. Acknowledging that King Eugene must constantly deal with such situations, she decides not to bother him unless it is an absolute last resort. Suddenly, a cheerful voice cuts through the air. Sir Azel Kala Tredan appears with a brilliant smile, wishing her a good day. He offers his apologies for not being able to visit for so long, exclaiming that she has no idea how much he has longed for her. He continues his effusive greeting, laughing as he expresses his delight at finally spending tea time with her. With a flushed, earnest expression, he asks if his love has finally reached her. The scene reveals he is speaking to Rita at an outdoor table. He apologizes for his sudden departure on a previous day, suggesting she must have been lonely. Rita calmly replies that it's natural to prioritize important business. Internally, she wonders about Ilbert's absence. Azel chuckles, telling her not to put on a brave face and insisting his concern is sincere. She internally notes how transparent he is. Just as she thinks this, Azel launches into a business proposal, mentioning he has acquired new furs and carriages and is developing new products with them. He confidently states that he is certain she will find something to her liking and invites her to view them upon completion. Rita silently questions if he is trying to secure her as a major client or a patron, observing how talkative he becomes when discussing his business. He leans forward with a sly smile, asking if he might be so bold as to select a gift for her himself. He adds that in matters of gifts, he wishes to prove that his taste is superior to the king's. Rita listens, her expression unreadable. His gaze sharpens with intensity. Maintaining her composure, Rita thanks him for the offer. A moment later, however, she seems to falter, clearing her throat as she struggles to find the right words. Her thoughts race, solidifying her position. The clothes she currently possesses were graciously provided by His Majesty, and she needs nothing more. Furthermore, as she is only his fiancée, she has no authority to use the nation's treasury. Gathering her resolve, she looks him directly in the eye and asks him to state his meaning more plainly. She declares that if he is expecting something from her, she cannot deliver it. With finality, she tells him that it is pointless to try and use her. Her firm rejection is met not with anger, but with condescending laughter from Azel. He mocks her, stating that she doesn't understand at all. With a sinister smile, he leans in, claiming to know her most important secret and pointing out that she hasn't realized her very existence has value to be used. He continues his threat, suggesting that if what she is hiding were to leak, it would surely be a problem for King Eugene. The implication strikes Rita with force, and a horrifying thought crosses her mind. He knows she's an imposter. As she reels from the shock, Azel slides a note across the table. He tells her that if she wants to protect that secret, she must come to a designated location alone the day after tomorrow. He preemptively dismisses any denial, stating it as a fact that he holds her secret. With his terms delivered, he turns to leave, casting a final, confident glance over his shoulder. He remarks that he is sure they will have a most interesting conversation, then bids her farewell, leaving her alone in the garden. A short while later, Layla approaches, cheerfully noting that Rita just missed Lord Azel. Her smile vanishes as she sees her sister's face. Alarmed by how pale she is, Layla asks what happened. Rita, looking shaken, can only utter her sister's name. Layla presses for an explanation. Rita begins to explain the situation, stating that she has to go somewhere. Layla immediately objects, insisting it's too dangerous for her to go alone. As Rita recounts the events, her hand covering her mouth in distress, Layla listens and finally understands the gravity of what has occurred. Her hands clench into fists. She internally resolves that she doesn't want to worry or trouble King Eugene any more than she already has. She would much prefer to resolve this matter quietly, without anyone else learning of it. Seeing her sister's determination, Layla sets aside her own concerns. With a reassuring expression, she tells Rita that she will help her. Relieved by the support, Rita quietly agrees. They formulate a plan. Using their father's poor health as a cover, they leave the estate in a carriage. Partway there, Rita, now disguised in a hooded cloak, asks Layla to drop her off so she can walk the rest of the way. Though Layla offers to take her closer, Rita refuses, not wanting to involve her further. She gives one final instruction. If she doesn't return in 2 hours, Layla must tell Ilbert everything. Layla acknowledges the order. From the carriage, Layla quietly wishes Kenny good luck. Now alone, the cloaked Rita walks through the town streets until she arrives at her destination. She finds the designated place, a common-looking store, and cautiously peeks inside, wondering why a nobleman would choose such a location for a secret meeting. She steps into the dimly lit interior, a sense of foreboding prickling at her skin. A single thought solidifies in her mind. Something feels deeply wrong. Her apprehension is immediately validated. A man, Azel, stands waiting for her. He gestures toward a seat, his voice smooth as he says he's been expecting her. She can only manage a hesitant, "Excuse me," in reply. He settles into a chair with an air of theatrical confidence, a smug grin spreading across his face as he addresses her by her true title, Lady Scrine. She observes him, thinking to herself that he carries the air of a major villain from a drama. She cuts straight to the point, asking if he's satisfied now that she's appeared as requested. He chides her for being hasty, mockingly offering to profess his love and desire for her. She flatly refuses the advance. He then pivots, correctly guessing that what she truly wants is to get away from King Eugene. He presses his attack, laying out a false narrative. He accuses her of deceiving the king and posturing as a goddess, all to gain power. He claims she sees her engagement as a mere political marriage, a game to use King Eugene for her own benefit. Azel boasts that his information comes from a reliable source, so he cannot be mistaken about her true feelings. With a cold glare, Rita flatly denies the accusation, wondering internally if she came all this way just to listen to such nonsense. She retorts sharply, stating she cares for King Eugene and would never use him. She turns the accusation back on Azel, claiming he's the one who wants to use them for personal gain and demanding he reveal his true intentions. He simply offers to help her be honest. His condescending demeanor shatters as he bursts into laughter. Conceding the point, he reveals his true motive. He simply wants to make a deal with the king. He brings up a scandal from a few years prior involving the black market, iron smuggling, and illegal weapon sales, asking if she knows about it. His words trigger a memory of when King Eugene dealt with the subjects who had betrayed him in that very incident. The image flashes through her mind as she stares at Azel in disbelief, asking if he has any idea what he is proposing. Suddenly, he grabs her arm. As she cries out for him to let go, he calls her clueless. He declares that a fundamental of trade is making a name for oneself. And with a menacing look, he proclaims he will use any and all methods in the pursuit of profit. She struggled in his grasp, her eyes wide with alarm as the confrontation escalated dramatically. Azel produced a small pistol, aiming it directly at her. Stunned, Rita stammered, questioning if he truly meant to take her hostage. A cruel smile spread across Azel's face as he confirmed her fear, remarking that it was now apparent how much the king treasured her. He declared with chilling confidence that with her as his captive, King Eugene would surely be forced to strike a deal. With a small bandage on her cheek, Rita Scrine considers her situation. She recalls that Hashina felt responsible for her, realizing that while he may be the cruel wolf, he might be forced to negotiate since she is his hostage. Her thoughts turn darker as she resolves to find a means of escape. A cruel smile forms on her lips as she imagines seeing Hashina on the verge of tears. She accepts that this is her fault, but sees a chance to exploit his guilt, wondering what his expression would be if he saw her now. Suddenly, a sharp cracking sound echoes through the air. The ladder she was standing on splinters and breaks, sending her falling backward with a gasp of surprise. Below, Ilbert Landry's head snaps up, his eyes widening in alarm as he witnesses her descent. Reacting with incredible speed, he lunges forward, catching Rita just moments before she would have hit the ground. Nearby, Azelle cries out in shock at the sudden, dangerous event. He holds her securely in his arms, relief washing over his features as he looks down at her and confirms she is alive. Thank goodness, he murmurs, clutching her tightly. Moments later, inside a well-lit room, Rita stands before Ilbert, apologizing profusely. She blames her own naivete for what happened. As he kneels to embrace her, Ilbert reassures her, stating that he understands and she no longer needs to worry about him. He rises and gently tells Lady Rita that she has nothing to apologize for and no reason to worry. However, his expression becomes more serious as he notes that she didn't tell him what was happening and asks if he may pose a single question. His question hangs in the air. Do you find me unreliable? Startled, Rita immediately and forcefully refutes the idea, exclaiming that she has never once thought of him as someone unreliable. Her denial continues as she explains that she simply didn't want to bother him, acknowledging that he is constantly saving her. Ilbert listens intently before telling her that it is not a bother for him, and that the thought of her being hurt or in danger somewhere unknown is a much worse fate. He gently touches the bandage on her cheek, his gaze soft but firm. He tells her that this is precisely why he is here for her. He wants her to be able to leave this place in peace, and pleads with her not to forget his purpose. He continues, explaining that he understands King Eugene's feelings and does not wish to hurt him. Rita quietly offers her thanks, acknowledging the difficult position he is in. He then admits that while he anticipated people would try to use her after their engagement was announced, he ultimately considers the recent danger a result of his own carelessness. At his words, a realization strikes Rita. She recalls being told the mission in the West would take at least a month, and the thought that he abandoned his duties for her sake makes her flush with embarrassment. Her thoughts drift to a recent conversation where Duke Scrine noted to a troubled Ilbert that they had returned just in time. The Duke mentioned that the Western issue concluded early and reminded Ilbert that he had assigned a bodyguard to Rita, asking for updates and telling him not to take it the wrong way. Back in the present, Ilbert leans closer, apologizing for not telling her sooner. He confesses that the moment he heard about Lord Azelle's plot, he rushed everything to return to her side. A flustered Rita can only stammer that she hadn't even noticed. He informs her that he has another request. Internally, Rita is moved by how much he treasures her. She looks at him gratefully, thanking him for his concern and assuring him she would never think badly of him for it. After she agrees, Ilbert asks if she would stay at the castle for the time being. He explains that her presence there would make it significantly easier to identify and stop the people who are targeting her. He assures her that once the threat is dealt with, everything should return to normal. With newfound resolve, Rita agrees, stating her need to properly understand her position. She declares her intent to help flush out Azelle's collaborators and search for any other suspicious individuals. A new concern arises. Rita asks if Layla was near the town square, her expression clouded with worry that her double might have been punished because of her own mistake. She apologizes again for all the trouble. Her face floods with relief as Ilbert reassures her. He states firmly that he was never going to blame Lady Layla for what happened. He then explains that he has already met with Layla, heard her side of the story, and sent her safely back to the castle. He gently holds her hands, looking at her with concern. He addresses her as Lady Rita, observing that she is always so worried about other people. His expression then shifts to one of pointed inquiry. He asks if she felt anything for Lord Azelle, or if she was perhaps attracted by his good looks, which are said to be the finest in the kingdom. As he leans in, Rita flushes, realizing he intends to kiss her hand, and internally denying she ever felt anything for Azelle beyond a desire to help. She blurts out her denial, exclaiming never, not one bit. Rita confesses that she disliked it when Lord Azelle touched her, but doesn't mind his touch at all, adding that she finds him much more wonderful. As she speaks, she realizes with a jolt that he seems to be acting jealous. Overwhelmed by her own admission, she brings her hands to her blushing face, her thoughts trailing off as she considers him. A wave of embarrassment washes over her as she processes what she just said, thinking she's revealed too much. Seeing her state, he gently lifts her hand to his lips, placing a soft kiss upon it. He apologizes for teasing her, confessing that hearing about Lord Azelle's attempt to woo her and kiss her hand made him feel competitive. Rita is stunned that he knew the specifics of the encounter. His expression turns serious as he gently touches her cheek. He reminds her that as the king's fiancée, she must not give other men any hope. Looking into his eyes, she quietly agrees. Their moment is interrupted by the sight of the castle and a familiar voice. Layla rushes forward, calling out to her elder sister Rita, expressing her relief at seeing her safe. With Ilbert by her side, Rita looks toward her home and declares, "I'm back." Yano Kane, living as Rita Scrine, touches her chin in contemplation. She realizes that navigating her new life will require not just time, but a great deal of courage as well. As she walks down a grand hallway with Ilberd, he promises to make time for her once things settle down. When she agrees, he playfully asks if she thinks he's lying, to which she demurs. He then invites her to play cards, boasting that he's even better than Ilberd himself, and she replies that she would love to see that. They continue walking side by side, the weight of their recent conversation lingering between them. Elsewhere, Azel Kala Trade spots Layla and calls out her name, his expression turning to one of shock and concern as he wonders about the young politician he just saw. In a private room, Layla playfully accosts Rita, who laughs and gives up, telling her sister to stop. While helping Rita with her dress, Layla suddenly remembers seeing her talking with a man in the hallway. Rita, meanwhile, complains that she just can't get used to wearing a corset, though Layla reminds her it's necessary practice for the even tighter wedding dress. Layla asks who the man was, and Rita admits she was seen. She explains that he is Lord Glenn Du Carlisle, a financial auditor, and that she had simply helped him when he was lost. She adds that they talked for a bit, and he seemed very kind and friendly. Her sister immediately asks if she is falling in love. A flustered Rita denies it, then concedes she isn't sure yet. Her expression saddens as she considers the difficulty, noting that she is a duke's daughter while he is only a count's son. She wistfully tells Layla that people should be free to love whomever they please. Layla's attention shifts, and she bluntly asks if Rita has told the king how she feels yet. Rita admits she hasn't. Layla accepts this, guessing there hasn't been time, but tries to reassure her sister, insisting the king must like her and is just busy. As Layla speaks, Rita despairs internally, knowing she can never explain that the king's kindness is merely a product of obligation. She stammers, flustered, as Layla points out how well she and Lord Glenn seem to get along, even remarking that they looked good together. Clearing her throat to regain control of the conversation, Layla dismisses the topic and refocuses on what she deems important. Rita must tell the king how she feels, no matter how he responds. Feeling cornered by her sister's insistence, Rita can only manage a meek agreement. Later, Rita finds herself entertaining another guest, Sophia Woodfall, the daughter of a marquis. Sophia thanks her for her time, but Rita graciously dismisses the formality, explaining that her duty is to keep Sophia company while the marquis discusses political matters with King Eugene. Sophia smiles, promising to return with even more entertaining stories for their next meeting. As the young woman departs, Rita watches her, thinking to herself what a delight she is, as pretty as a doll. Sophia offers one last thank you before turning to leave. Her pleasant observation is cut short, however, as she notices a sudden shift in Sophia's demeanor. A look of worry crosses the girl's face, and Rita wonders what could be the matter. The reason for her worry becomes immediately clear. Sophia turns back, her expression now one of desperate urgency, and asks if it would be possible for her brother to work at the castle. Rita is stunned by the abrupt request. Sophia quickly explains that her brother attends the Royal Academy and hopes to serve the country by working at the castle. With her hands clasped anxiously, she adds that he is set to take the final exam next year, but she has heard that it is awfully difficult. In a sunlit garden pavilion, Sophia Woodfall leans forward, her expression earnest as she pleads with Rita. She extols her brother's virtues, describing him as a skilled man who cares more for the country than anyone, and begs for help in advancing his dream. Rita listens with a neutral expression as Sophia addresses her formally. Sensing she may have overstepped, Sophia's confidence falters. She brings a hand to her mouth, apologizing for making what she now feels was an impertinent request. Rita gently declines, stating that she cannot help with the wish. However, she offers encouragement, noting that based on Sophia's description, her brother sounds like a wise and wonderful person who will surely be noticed by the king on his own merits. Just as their conversation concludes, a maid, Tilda, arrives with a tea service, apologizing for the delay. She announces that it is a black tea gifted by Lady Sophia. At that moment, Ilberd appears with a cheerful greeting. Rita, surprised, remarks that she has no lesson scheduled and asks why he is there. He flashes a charming smile, explaining that he glanced into the garden from a hallway, spotted a beautiful gathering of butterflies, and decided to join them. His sharp eyes take in the three women before him. Flustered by his sudden arrival, Rita hastily tries to make room for him at the table, but in her rush, she accidentally knocks over her teacup. As she apologizes and reaches to clean the spill, Ilberd sharply tells her to stop. His gaze is fixed on the puddle of tea, and his expression turns grim. With chilling certainty, he declares that the tea is poisoned. Without hesitation, he takes Rita's hand, announcing he will examine it. A faint click is heard as he inspects her skin for any sign of contact with the poison, while Sophia and Tilda look on in stunned silence. After a moment's inspection, Ilberd notes that her arm seems fine. Despite this, his expression remains serious as he insists they have a doctor examine her, just in case. He holds up her bracelet, directing her attention to the spot where the tea had spilled. Look closely, he urges. Still shaken, Rita questions why he removed her jewelry and presses him on his certainty about the poison. In response, he points to a distinct discoloration on the ornate metalwork. The pure silver has been visibly darkened, a chemical reaction that he explains would not occur with ordinary black tea. He confirms that this is definitive proof of poison, which jogged a memory for Rita. Her heart thumps in her chest as the full weight of the situation dawns on her. She recalls hearing that nobles in her old world also used silver to test for poison. The chilling thought crosses her mind. If she hadn't accidentally spilled the tea, she would have drunk the poison. If the liquid hadn't touched her bracelet, the attempt would have gone unnoticed. A dreadful question forms. Was she the intended victim, or was it perhaps Lady Sophia? The conclusion is inescapable. Someone is actively trying to kill her. While Rita grapples with this terrifying realization, Ilberd turns to Tilda, instructing her to summon a few people, beginning with King Eugene. He cuts his order short, however, realizing there is no longer a need. His attention has been caught by the arrival of Lord Glenn and Azelle. A concerned Glenn demands to know what has happened. With a grave expression, Ilberd turns to him and delivers the news bluntly. Lady Rita's tea was poisoned. The declaration sends a shockwave through Glenn. Ilberd quickly adds that he managed to stop Rita just before she drank it, confirming that she is unharmed. The near miss causes Sophia to let out a frightened gasp, while Glenn clutches his head, overwhelmed with relief. King Eugene's voice cuts through the tension, his face a mask of fury as he demands to know who brewed the tea. A startled Rita can only stare as her maid, Tilda, confesses that they both prepared it. Tilda quickly adds that they only used the black tea gifted to them by Lady Sophia, who immediately protests her innocence, swearing she would never poison it. As the weight of the accusation settles, Sophia's father, Marquis Woodfall, rushes to his daughter's side. He pleads with the king, insisting there must be a misunderstanding and that his daughter would never harm the king's beloved. His plea is met with explosive anger. A misunderstanding? King Eugene roars, his eyes blazing. He demands proof, challenging them to explain how such a thing could have happened otherwise. Seeing his fury spiral, Rita gently tries to intervene, urging King Eugene to calm down. But he dismisses her attempt, questioning how he could possibly remain calm in this situation, especially since the tea in question was a gift from Lady Sophia. His words force Rita to pause and consider the accused. She looks over at Sophia, her mind racing. She recalls how desperately the young lady had pleaded for support for her brother's dream. It seems unlikely that someone so invested in her family's future would risk it all. The question hangs in her mind. Would that be enough to deem her the culprit? Her thoughts are interrupted as a royal secretary and an armored bodyguard approach, addressing the king with formal deference. The king, however, dismisses Sophia's frantic cries that they did nothing wrong. We'll see, he states coldly, his decision made. He orders the guards to arrest Marquis Woodfall and his daughter and throw them in jail. As the order is carried out, Rita's concerns shift from the accused to the king himself. She realizes that if the king is making a mistake in his anger, he could lose the trust of the nobles and the people. On a personal level, she knows this cannot be allowed to happen. She must calm him down. Driven by this realization, she finds her voice. Please wait, she calls out, stepping forward. Don't arrest them yet. She looks directly at the king, her expression earnest as she states her belief. I don't think that Lady Sophia is someone who'd poison me. Hearing Rita's words, Sophia looks up, her face streaked with tears, a flicker of hope in her wide, desperate eyes. She stands her ground, declaring she will do no such thing. King Eugene turns to her, his expression cold and hard, and commands her to stay out of the matter. He erupts in fury, questioning why he should postpone their arrest. He demands to know why he should listen to what they have to say when someone just tried to kill her. In response, she desperately pleads with him. She argues that nobles always have their reasons, and even though she doesn't know what Lady Sophia's could be, she simply cannot believe the young woman is capable of murder. A tense silence falls between them, their gazes locked in a silent battle of wills. Finally, he relents with a heavy sigh. He instructs the guards to take the accused to the drawing room instead of to jail, agreeing to hear them out. Overwhelmed with relief, Lady Sophia and her father thank him profusely. He then turns to Rita, his expression softening as he apologizes, admitting that he loses control of his emotions whenever she is involved. She looks up at him, thanking him for stopping. As the tension subsides, a wave of dizziness washes over her. She thanks him for believing her, even without any proof to support her intuition. He gently takes her hand, reminding her that she was the one who endured the most frightening experience. He urges her to rest in her room for the remainder of the day, and she quietly agrees. Walking away, she clenches her fist in frustration, wondering why such a terrible event had to occur. Ilberd Landry enters a room, letting out a weary sigh. As he steps forward, a voice commands him to present the results of his investigation. Startled, Ilberd lets out a sharp gasp. The command came from King Eugene, who is casually occupying the throne. He remarks with a grin that sudden compliments make him blush, prompting Ilberd to flatly state it was not a compliment. Eugene then observes that Ilberd must be the only person in the world who would dare take the king's seat without a second thought. Eugene mockingly thanks King Eugene for his hard work. As Ilberd internally laments his plan to think alone being ruined, Eugene playfully pokes him, telling him to get off. Ilberd silently reflects on how amazing Rita is. He continues his train of thought, acknowledging that in the chaos of the party, someone could have tried to poison her. He realizes that Rita, thinking of his status, stopped him from acting rashly. A sense of genuine gratitude toward Lady Rita washes over him for her intervention. Watching him, Eugene smiles and points out that Ilberd also tried to stop him, offering a surprising apology. The king then marvels to himself that he, the cruel wolf, has apologized, guessing it must be due to Rita's influence. Ilberd's expression hardens into an intense glare. Seeing this, Eugene recoils slightly, telling him not to look at him that way because it's frightening. He dismisses the moment with a wave of his hand, stating that he is used to Eugene's harsh treatment anyway. The conversation shifts to the poison tea. Ilberd asks if Eugene thinks Lady Sophia was the culprit. Eugene admits he has no evidence, but believes it's unlikely. He posits that the reason Ilberd left the investigation was because he, too, doesn't suspect her. Ilberd confirms this is correct. Ilberd explains his reasoning. Although he heard Rita rejected Sophia's request to hire her brother, he believes Sophia is truthful about her ignorance of the matter. He concludes that it's unlikely Sophia would gift poison tea and that she has no other apparent motive to hold a grudge against Rita. Eugene listens, then makes a startling revelation. He confirms that Lady Sophia's tea was indeed poisoned. He then turns the questioning on Ilberd, asking how he knew to examine the tea she brought in the first place, implying the poison must have been mixed into the leaves from the start. He listened as Ilberd mentally reviewed the facts. The logic was simple. If the intent was to kill Lady Rita, then only her specific cup of tea would have been poisoned. Furthermore, Ilberd reasoned, Lady Sophia would not knowingly poison a drink she was also likely to consume herself. He voiced this conclusion to the king, stating that he did not believe Sophia was the perpetrator. The question then became, who else could have done it? Only a select few knew the details. King Eugene interjected, reminding him that there were still many suspects. He acknowledged that as a man with many enemies, some might find it easier to target Lady Rita to get to him. Ilberd's expression grew serious as he considered the possibility of the culprit being someone within the castle. His mind raced, connecting the dots between recent events, the engagement party, the incident when Tilda was hurt. He was bothered by how quickly someone had acted against Yano-san after the engagement was only recently announced. A sudden thought struck him, his eyes widening in alarm. The realization crystallized. Lady Layla, the real Rita Scrine. Ilberd understood that she was the only one in the castle who would know Yano-san's schedule and condition. More damningly, Layla was the only one who knew the current Lady Rita was an imposter and had a history of taking action against her. Inside a study, Ilberd Landry voices his suspicions to his friend, Glenn. He questions what Layla could possibly gain from the current situation, pondering if she is the true culprit. He theorizes that Yano might have been summoned specifically to marry him in Layla's stead. His thoughts are interrupted by a jolt as he considers the name Eugene, realizing they are up against a formidable foe, and they still have no leads on who manipulated Lord Azel. Glenn confirms that he knows Ilberd and Rita, Yano, share some kind of secret. He then brings up a complicating factor, reminding Ilberd that Layla is, after all, Rita's younger sister. He leans closer, his expression softening as he offers his support. Glenn assures Ilberd that he doesn't mind if the secret is kept, reaffirming their friendship and insisting that he can be trusted. His tone becomes urgent. Glenn warns that not everyone around them is an ally, and that if the situation continues, he may not be able to protect both Yano and Rita. He implores Ilberd to remember he has people who care for him and to come to his office at the research department the following day, promising to reveal everything he knows. Ilberd, trusting his friend, silently agrees. Meanwhile, in her chambers, Yano is lost in thought, exhausted from a sleepless night. Her maid, Tilda, calls out to her, breaking her reverie. As Tilda sets down a cup with a soft clack, she notes that Yano's distraction is understandable given recent events, but advises her not to dwell on it too much. Yano stares at the tea with suspicion. Tilda, perceiving her hesitation, bluntly reassures her that it hasn't been poisoned. The directness of the statement startles Yano, and Tilda offers to pour her a new cup. As Tilda turns away, Yano quietly wonders if Layla was also questioned. Her thought is cut short by a knock at the door. Tilda is surprised to find Ilberd standing there, apologizing for disturbing Yano's rest. Yano looks up, equally surprised by his sudden appearance. Now seated before her visitor, Yano turns to her maid. She asks Tilda for a private word, her tone indicating its importance. Tilda immediately understands and agrees, quietly excusing herself. With Tilda gone, Ilberd speaks directly to Yano, addressing her not as Lady Rita, but as Yano-san. He asks if she remembers the smartphone she had when she first arrived and if she still possesses it. Yano confirms that she does, her expression guarded as she asks why he wants to know. His gaze is intent. He instructs her to please grab the device and then to come with him to see Ilberd. He holds the smartphone, his eyes wide with astonishment. He exclaims, asking what in the world the object is, marveling at an intricate design the likes of which he has never seen. Yano looks on, startled by his intense reaction. Before explaining anything, Glenn asks if Yano can make the device usable again. Yano seems uncertain, explaining that it works if charged with electricity, but admits she doesn't know where to start. Seeing this, Ilberd decides they should give it a try anyway. A moment later, the device's screen illuminates, displaying a symbol of a battery filling with power. Yano gasps, amazed that he managed to do it. With the device now active, Glenn presses for an explanation about it and the situation between Ilbert and Yano. Ilbert's expression turns serious as he reveals the truth. Lady Rita is not the real Rita Scrine. She is not from this world, and he himself possesses memories from past life. Overwhelmed, Glenn Du Carlyle struggles to breathe, demanding an explanation from the very beginning. Rita presents her cell phone, identifying it as proof, a device for communicating with people far away, something impossible to create in their world. Glenn remains incredulous, dismissing the talk of summoning, magic, and other worlds as a joke, unable to believe what he's hearing. He slumps in his seat, head bowed in thought as Rita and Ilbert watch him. After a moment of strained silence, Glenn looks up, his expression a mixture of confusion and reluctant acceptance, admitting that he still finds it all hard to process. To provide more tangible proof, Rita cheerfully holds up her phone, explaining that it has a feature called a camera, which can create a photo, a perfect image of a person or place captured in an instant. She shows him an image of herself from her original world, smiling brightly in modern attire. She clarifies that back home, she was a 28-year-old office lady. Glenn stares at the screen, asking in amazement if the girl in the picture is really her. A wave of relief washes over Rita as she sees their doubt begin to fade. She looks gratefully at Ilbert, who meets her gaze and confirms with a calm certainty. Okay, I believe you. His friend's conviction solidifies Glenn's own belief. He concedes that he must accept her story, having been shown clothes, places, and machines he's never seen before, and acknowledges the courage it took to tell them. He then remarks with a playful shock that she's actually older than him, causing Rita to blush. Now intrigued, he asks to see more photos, and she hesitantly agrees. Upon hearing this, Ilbert leans in as well, asking if he can see the photos too. Rita nods in agreement. She navigates to another picture, explaining it was taken during a company retreat. As she holds out the phone, she thinks to herself how embarrassing it is to show these to Hashina-kun, her mind briefly superimposing Ilbert's face over that of his doppelganger from her past. Glenn points at the screen, noticing a man who appears frequently in the photos. He observes that the man seemed to be in love with her and asks if he was her boyfriend. Flustered, Rita vehemently denies it, insisting she turn him down. Glenn smiles, commenting that with her mature and pretty looks, it's no wonder she was popular. He then turns to Ilbert, casually misaddressing him as King Eugene, and asks for his opinion. Ilbert's expression hardens. He cuts in sharply, declaring that's enough of that photo and that they should look at something else. Startled by his sudden anger, Rita wonders what made him so mad as she quickly swipes to the next image. She swipes to the next image on her phone, revealing a photograph of herself with a young man. Her past self in the picture is winking, while the young man beside her has a gentle smile. She explains that it's one of her most precious memories, likely taken at a cultural festival. Her explanation only piques Glenn's curiosity, but before he can get a better look, Ilbert lunges forward, grabbing her arm. He exclaims that she is being far too unguarded, startling her with his sudden action. Glenn finally sees the image and shouts in alarm, telling Lady Rita she absolutely cannot show the particular photo to Ilbert. He's struck by the resemblance, noting the man in the picture looks just like Eugene. A flustered Ilbert, his face flushed, turns away and demands that she delete the photo immediately. Caught in the middle of their frantic reactions, Rita can only offer a panicked apology. She looks at Ilbert with resolve and refuses his demand. She explains that she cannot delete it, as the photo is an important memory of her time with the man she calls Hashina-kun. As Ilbert stares at her, taken aback, Glenn erupts in boisterous laughter, remarking that it has been a long time since he last laughed so heartily. His expression shifts entirely. He reaches out, his finger hovering over the phone screen, and states that he now understands. Looking at Rita, he posits a new theory, that Layla, or rather, the real Lady Scrine, has a high likelihood of being the true culprit. Rita looks back at him, utterly bewildered by his sudden conclusion and the mention of Layla's name. Lord Glenn states his belief that all the recent unfortunate incidents have been orchestrated by Lady Layla. Ilbert asks Kane why, prompting her to recall that the troubles began when Layla first arrived at the castle. Despite this, Kane finds it impossible to imagine Layla doing something so awful, her voice trailing off in doubt. Glenn elaborates on his theory, explaining that as someone personally involved in the switch, Layla is fully aware of Kane's situation. He concludes that Layla is the only one with enough knowledge to orchestrate the attacks, and is likely trying to eliminate her for some reason. The accusation leaves Kane stunned, whispering Layla's name in disbelief. Her hand clenches into a tight fist. Internally, she struggles to accept the possibility, even as she tells Ilbert that she understands his point. She voices her confusion aloud, unable to think of a single reason why Layla would want to eliminate her. If Layla had simply wanted her position back, she could have just asked. Ilbert challenges that notion, questioning if she would truly agree so easily. He mentions that seeing the picture of them together sparked his thoughts. Kane hesitates, admitting she couldn't easily accept switching back. A realization dawns on her. Layla knows her feelings for King Eugene, which might be the motive for such desperate measures. He confirms her suspicion with a simple yeah. Ilbert then reveals he suspects King Eugene wants to let Layla roam free while keeping her under surveillance. Glenn immediately points out the risk, as it would put Kane in danger again. Ilbert concedes they have no evidence, but Glenn insists they cannot allow a suspect to move about freely. Glenn turns to Kane, instructing her not to wander the castle alone. He acknowledges it's a big request, but urges her not to be alone with Layla. He assures her he will arrange for bodyguards and formulate a plan to guarantee her safety. He then tells Kane they need her help to both protect her and catch the culprit. Ilbert chimes in, promising to stay with her as much as possible. Glenn addresses her by her true name, Kane-chan, asking for her cooperation. With a resigned look, Kane agrees to be careful around Layla. Ilbert abruptly leans close to Glenn, his expression intense. He remarks that since he knows Glenn's real name, perhaps he should call him Kane-chan in private. Glenn recoils, shouting that Ilbert is scaring him. Ilbert dismisses it as a joke, but Glenn sternly warns him to refrain from any action that could expose Lady Rita's identity. As Glenn continues his lecture, Ilbert playfully presses a finger to his lips, a smirk on his face. Watching the two, Kane lets out a small puff of laughter, covering her mouth with her hand. She tells Ilbert not to blame himself, acknowledging that his plan is necessary. Despite this, she confesses a desperate need to believe in Layla, explaining that she must hold on to the hope that Layla isn't the culprit. The alternative, accepting she might have been betrayed all along, is too frightening to consider. In response to her vulnerability, he pulls her into a firm embrace. Holding her, he expresses his deep regret, stating that while he promised to protect her, he feels he has only brought her more suffering. He laments his inability to make her smile with easy banter like others can. He then makes a new vow, to catch the culprit quickly so that she, Yano-san, can finally feel safe. Through her tears, she quietly accepts his promise. Meanwhile, in another part of the castle, Layla seethes with frustration. Her plans have all failed, and the wedding is approaching. Her thoughts are interrupted by the arrival of a guest, Lord Glenn. As a servant announces him, Glenn asks if his visit went unnoticed. Layla offers a cold welcome, her mind fixed on her next move, while Glenn silently reaffirms his own determination to succeed. For the past few days, since being warned about Layla, Rita has been trying to live her life, as usual, determined to act as though nothing is amiss. As she walks through a palace corridor, a man stumbles dramatically before her, dropping a stack of papers. She helps him, handing one back as he offers profuse thanks. Internally, Rita reflects that they aren't even certain Layla is the true culprit. The flustered man looks up, his eyes widening in recognition. He stammers, mortified that he has bothered Lady Rita. He introduces himself as Lord Glenn. Rita internally notes that he is the same man she saw speaking with Layla recently. Glenn surprises her by saying he already knows of her because Layla mentioned her, adding that he is on his way to see His Majesty the King. Their conversation is interrupted by a cheerful greeting. Layla appears, asking what they are doing. Lord Glenn explains that Rita had just helped him pick up some documents he foolishly dropped. Layla playfully chides Lord Glenn for being clumsy, reminding him of another recent incident. As he looks away, embarrassed, Rita observes them. She thinks they just seem to be getting along well, but a seed of suspicion is planted. What if Lord Glenn is working together with Layla? Just then, Ilbert and another nobleman arrive, asking what the group is doing gathered in the hall. Rita explains it was a coincidental meeting. Ilbert then addresses Lord Glenn directly, reminding him of his plan to provide a briefing on the economy and instructing him to come to his office. He then turns his attention to Rita, suggesting she should return to her room as well, noting she has had very little time to study lately. A bit flustered, Rita agrees. Later that night, Rita walks through a quiet corridor. She realizes with a laugh that she forgot to ask Eugene about the marriage ceremony, but dismisses it, thinking she can ask later. Recalling the secretary said he was in his office, she approaches the door and knocks. As she calls out, "Excuse me," a sudden realization stops her. Her eyes widen in surprise as she wonders if she and someone else just passed by each other on opposite sides of the door. She received no answer to her knock. Peeking into the room, she saw a figure she identified as King Eugene sitting at a desk with his back to her. She stepped inside, asking if she could have a moment of his time. As she drew closer, she realized he was unresponsive because he had fallen asleep. A wave of understanding washed over her. He must have been so tired that he dozed off right there in the chair. He let out a soft groan, his brow furrowed in slumber. Noting how rare it was for him to doze off like that, she wondered if he was having a nightmare and instinctively reached a hand toward him. Before her fingers could make contact, his eyes snapped open. "Who's there?" he demanded, his voice sharp and alert. The sudden outburst startled her, and she let out a small shriek. In a flash, he seized her wrist, pulling her off balance and closer to him. "Lady Rita," he questioned, his grip firm. Flustered and with her heart hammering against her ribs, she confirmed, "Yes, it's me." Still flustered, she tried to explain, stating that she felt he was about to do something to her. He countered, admitting he thought someone was trying to catch him by surprise, and apologized for the disturbance. She then clarified her innocent intention. His bangs were covering his face, and she had only wanted to brush them aside. He then asked what it was she wanted to discuss. He stared at her, his expression one of deep skepticism. "Is that really all?" he asked, his voice laced with doubt. His disbelief sent a wave of mortification through her. "I'm sorry," she blurted out, her face flushing crimson. "I was just trying to pet your head." In a grand hall, Yano Kane, as Lady Rita, confronts Layla, questioning her about breaking off the engagement with King Eugene. Layla cryptically confirms that many things have happened recently. As a clock ticks nearby, Yano worries that if she remains, similar incidents might occur, expressing that she doesn't want the king or anyone else to suffer because of her. Layla then asks if King Eugene agreed to this. Her thoughts drift to Ilbert, recalling that he had understood her reasoning. Her expression, initially somber, shifts to one of wide-eyed shock. The shock hardens into cold fury. As a dark silhouette looms behind her, a single thought burns in her mind. "How dare you?" Suddenly, a gloved hand clamps over her mouth, muffling her gasp of surprise. Her head feels heavy and disoriented. From a distance, Ilbert watches in horror, questioning how Miss Rita could have vanished right in front of her guards. He processes the scene with mounting dread. A mysterious, hooded man had materialized from nowhere, seized Rita, and then disappeared with her into thin air. The realization hits him hard. This is a terrible turn of events. His mind races to a conclusion. The hooded man's abilities suggest he is a mage. This leads Ilbert to a single, damning suspect. Miss Layla was the true culprit behind the abduction. Ilbert reports to Duke Scrine, stating that Layla's maids claim to know nothing about Rita's whereabouts. The Duke's hand clenches into a fist, and he curses King Eugene's name. As Ilbert desperately wonders where Rita could be, the maid Tilda steps forward with a look of grim resolve. He realizes she has an idea. Elsewhere, a groggy Rita lets out a faint groan. Tilda, her mind focused, considers Layla's plan. She concludes that if Layla intends to take Rita somewhere people won't easily find her, it must be that place. She awakens alone in an unfamiliar, opulent room. Disoriented, she tries to recall what happened, but her memory is a blank after someone covered her mouth. "Where am I?" she wonders, vulnerable and confused. She awakens to find herself in an unfamiliar, opulent room. A woman who looks exactly like her, Layla, greets her as dear sister, noting she woke sooner than expected. Standing beside Layla is a man she recognizes with a start, Lord Glenn. The horrifying realization dawns on her. They were plotting this together. Her attention then snaps to another figure in the room. It is the hooded mage from before, the one who abducted her. A flicker of hope ignites within her. Perhaps the mage found a way to send her back to her original world. But Layla quickly shatters the thought, explaining that they are at a secluded villa owned by the Scrine family, a place so rarely used that no one will know she is there. Layla continues, her voice laced with false sweetness, stating she was looking for another opportunity to kidnap her dear sis, or rather, Kane. She expresses her gratitude that Kane gave her the chance, remarking on how convenient magic is for such tasks. The phrase, another opportunity, strikes a chord. With growing dread, Kane asks if Layla was truly behind everything that has happened to her lately. Layla's smile widens as she confirms it. She confesses to everything. She was the one who tried to poison Kane while framing Lady Sophia. She sabotaged the carriage to injure Tilda, creating an opening to get inside the castle, and she fed false intelligence to Lord Azel, manipulating him into attempting a kidnapping for his own financial gain. Her confession culminates with a gleeful admission. She was also the one who let the bandits into the courtyard to assault her. All of it was her doing. Stunned into silence, Kane finally asks what Layla intends to do with her. Layla reassures her not to worry, as she has no plans to kill her. The words offer no comfort. Kane's shoulders slump in defeat, her mind reeling. She had wanted to believe it wasn't Layla, that it wasn't the real Rita. She weakly asks why she would do such things. Layla's expression hardens. She declares her true goal. She is going to kick Kane out of the castle and become Rita herself. She reasons that if she succeeds, she will become the king's fiancée whose life was recently in peril, and no one will suspect a thing if she acts a little differently from before. Kane is bewildered. She questions why Layla is doing this now, reminding her that she was sent to the villa to learn about true love. Layla laughs, dismissing the idea entirely, stating she never wanted that. She then asks why Kane broke the engagement, her laughter growing manic, leaving Kane to wonder about the true reason for this all-encompassing betrayal. Her mind struggled to process the change as Layla clarified her motives with chilling simplicity. She declared that she didn't care for stupid emotions. What she truly wanted was fame. Yano's thoughts reeled back to her own initial reluctance to be engaged to King Eugene, who is rumored to be a cruel and ruthless wolf. But Layla dismissed this, stating that the situation had now changed. She went on, reminding Yano that as Kane, she had everything she could ever want, and that people had even called her a goddess. Layla then revealed a crucial detail. King Eugene had not given Yano the cold shoulder. In fact, he had cared for her deeply, proving the rumors about his cruelty to be false. This knowledge reshaped Layla's entire perspective. She declared that she had been wrong. King Eugene wasn't the worst engagement partner, but the best possible one for her. With this new understanding, she spread her arms wide, demanding that Yano give her everything she possessed. Confused, Yano could only ask what she meant by everything. She eagerly listed her demands: the king's affection, a luxurious life, and the public identity of Rita Scrine that people recognized. She proclaimed her intent to become the happy and fortunate Rita, the true queen, an object of envy for all. The sheer avarice of the declaration stunned Yano. She questioned how Layla could marry someone she once hated purely for greed. Layla's silhouette confirmed her intentions, stating that once she became Rita, she would reinstate the engagement, seeking fame above all else. Facing her 3 captors, Yano looked at Layla with disbelief. She asked if this could truly be considered a happy or a fortunate outcome, pointing out that Layla didn't actually love King Eugene. Layla dismissed the question with a wave of her hand. She reasoned that since the king is a handsome man, she likes him well enough. To her, acquiring a handsome husband on top of everything else she desired was simply an added bonus. Her superficial logic ignited a protective fire in Yano. Realizing that Layla only valued the king for his appearance, she found her voice. She declared fiercely that she would not allow someone so shallow to be with King Eugene, nor would she let Rita get her way. Layla met her defiance with a knowing smile, stating she had anticipated such a response. She then revealed the next step of her plan. She had hired the mage again, this time to forcibly send Yano back to her original world. From there, Yano would be powerless to interfere. The realization struck Yano. Layla had a method to remove her from the picture entirely. As Layla explained the final, chilling details, Yano's mind raced, knowing she had to buy more time. Layla revealed that she had also arranged for her original identity, Layla, to die soon from a worsening illness, a development she considered fortunate. In a desperate attempt to find a crack in her captor's confidence, Yano asked if she wasn't afraid of the consequences should the king ever discover her deception. She listens as Layla, holding her arm, confidently declares that as long as Yano disappears, no one, not even the king, will ever find out about the switch. Tilda and Lord Glenn stand by, silent witnesses to the unfolding plot. The weight of Layla's words crushes her as the realization dawns. To Rita, she was never a sister, just a tool that is no longer useful. Layla, sitting comfortably, confirms this with a cheerful smile, calling Yano her pawn and adding that even though her usefulness has run out, she won't kill her, proclaiming herself a nice person. To solidify her control, she then turns to their accomplice, her smile unwavering as she seeks his confirmation. "You agree, right, Lord Glenn?" she asks. He flinches, his expression fraught with distress, but he can only manage a week, "I guess so." His reluctant agreement does nothing to sway Yano, who finds her voice in defiance. "No," she states firmly. She declares that she doesn't want to go back like this, her true motive surfacing. She refuses to leave Hashinakoin behind, especially not when Rita will be the one by his side. Her outburst is cut short by the sudden arrival of the hooded mage, who addresses her as Lady Scrine. The mage questions her reluctance, asking why she wouldn't want to return to her family back in her own world. Before anyone can answer, the mage's attention snaps to a small, glowing orb of light in their gloved hand. A flicker of energy signals an intrusion. "What?" the mage exclaims, announcing that someone has entered the magical detection area they had set up. With urgency, they reveal the intruder's identity. King Eugene is headed directly this way. The news sends a jolt of panic through Layla. Her composure shatters as she realizes Tilda must have tipped him off, cursing the maid for not keeping her mouth shut. She turns on Yano, pleading for her to stop, her voice laced with fear as she warns of the dire consequences for Yano if the king discovers them together. The real Rita Scrine's patience snaps. She shouts that she has had enough, rejecting any notion of a compromise. Her voice trembles with indignation as she declares there can only be one queen, refusing the idea of becoming a mere concubine. In contrast, Yano Kane's eyes widen with a sudden realization. She sees this confrontation not as a crisis, but as the perfect chance to switch places with her double. She turns to the robed mage, laying out her audacious plan. She proposes that Yano can pretend to be the real Lady Rita and be rescued by the king. Rita smirks, confident that if Yano returns to the castle in her stead, her own grander plan will succeed. She then challenges the mage to a bet on whether King Eugene will see through the deception. Unseen by them, Ilbert stands outside the estate, his back to the building. Yano Kane leans in close, her voice a low warning. She insists that King Eugene will notice the switch for sure, dismissing Rita's confidence as simple wishful thinking. The real Rita meets her gaze, a challenging glint in her eyes as she questions Yano's certainty. Her challenge continues. Rita states that if Yano is so confident, then there's no reason for her to back down from a wager. If the king notices the deception, Rita promises to confess everything and let Yano go free. With a dramatic flourish, she commands the mage to make her look like Yano's version of Rita right now. Defeated, Yano can only whisper her reluctant agreement. At the mage's command, a swirl of sparkling magic envelopes the two women, initiating the transformation. The real Rita, now wearing the elaborate gown, smiles with delight. She finds the entire affair very exciting and turns to Yano, who now wears the simpler dress, asking if she doesn't agree. The swap complete, the real Rita, now a perfect double for the noblewoman Yano had been portraying, turns and walks decisively down a long corridor, slamming a set of large doors behind her. The sound of that door slamming is immediately followed by another bursting open. Ilbert rushes into the room, his eyes wide with panic as he calls out for Miss Rita. He finds Yano, now in the plainer clothes, and grabs her by the shoulders, his voice a mixture of alarm and relief. He tries to reassure her, stating that there's nothing to worry about and he has everything under control. Before he can say more, a voice calls out from the hallway. The real Rita, perfectly playing the part of the damsel, identifies him as King Eugene. She rushes forward and throws herself into his arms, crying out that he has come to save her. He catches her, holding her close in a protective embrace. His expression softens with relief as he tells her he's glad she's okay. Gently cupping her face, he asks her what just happened. From the doorway, Yano watches the scene unfold. A small, grim smile touches her lips as the realization dawns. He hasn't noticed anything. The bet is over. It is the real Rita's win. She found herself in an unfamiliar, opulent room, quickly surmising the situation. She explained that while she was talking to Layla, a stranger used a strange ability to transport them here. She concluded they must have been kidnapped to extort a ransom from her family and the royal family. In response, King Eugene declared his intent to use this chance to settle everything. Believing all the recent troubles were their doing, he prepared to move, but she grabbed his arm in alarm. She warned him it was too dangerous, as their captors could use magic, and he must not face them alone. Her plea continued, her voice filled with genuine worry for his safety. She insisted that there was no telling what their captors might do to him if he were to confront them. He finally seemed to relent, agreeing to get out of there with her. As he pulled her into an embrace, however, the woman's expression twisted into a sinister, triumphant smirk. With a flick of her hand, she internally celebrated that with this, she could finally get everything she wanted. Elsewhere, King Eugene confronted the other woman, now appearing as Layla. He tilted her chin up, his gaze sharp as he asked how long she planned on keeping up the act. Feigning confusion, she stammered, asking what he could possibly be talking about. She desperately insisted that she was Rita, not Layla. But his voice cut through her denial, coolly stating that he could tell the two of them apart, questioning if she really thought he wouldn't notice just because they looked alike. His grip tightened as he leaned in close, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. He demanded she tell him where the real Miss Rita was, now, warning that if she continued the charade, he might choose to kill her right then and there. Terror flooded her mind. She realized he would actually kill her. Knowing she couldn't afford to fail, she cried out for him to wait. She confessed that she was Layla and had brought her dear sister Rita there, glancing pointedly toward the second floor. He followed her gaze. On the upper landing, King Eugene faced the woman appearing as Rita. He apologized for his earlier deception and admitted he had changed his mind about their arrangement. Then, he dropped the bombshell. He was already aware that she was not the real Miss Rita, but merely a substitute. The true Rita Scrine stood frozen in shock. The scene flashes back to their internal thoughts before the confrontation. The real Rita had worried about what she would do if the king failed to notice the switch. In contrast, Yano Kane, in Layla's form, had steeled her resolve, deciding she must do what she could and, above all, believe in King Eugene. She struggles against her bonds, asking the hooded figure if they can untie her, complaining that the magical bindings are too tight and painful. The figure confirms they were the one who bound her, but states that they cannot release her. The scene shifts to an earlier confrontation where Ilbert questions the hooded figure's motives in front of Rita. He asks why they are helping Rita, and the figure explains they were promised money and a peaceful life. From her confinement, Yano Kane realizes she is trapped because of this person's selfish desires, thinking that they owe her for her current predicament. Ilbert presses further, his voice low as he asks if Rita had threatened them or their family. The hooded figure flinches at the question, a silent confirmation of his suspicion. His gaze then shifts to Lord Glenn, asking if he too was threatened by Rita. Glenn flinches, unable to answer. Meanwhile, the hooded figure's true motivation is revealed in a private thought. They are in love with Lady Layla, but their difference in social standing is an insurmountable barrier. Lady Layla had promised that she would resolve this for them once she became queen. The scene returns to Rita, who coldly explains her strategy of taking advantage of others' weaknesses and promising to mediate on their behalf. As Yano Kane listens, she realizes with dawning horror that there could have been a much simpler solution if only these individuals had spoken directly to King Eugene. A sense of urgency propels her to dash forward. Just as she moves, a door is slammed open. Ilbert stands in the doorway, his face a mask of shock as he calls out for Miss Rita. He rushes to Yano Kane, pulling her into an embrace. He looks at her intently, asking if she is the Miss Rita who has always been by his side. Before she can answer, he cups her face, his expression softening as he confirms that he knows. Tears well in her eyes as the realization hits her. King Eugene noticed. He knew it was her all along. Overwhelmed, she fumbles with her hand, trying to remove the magical illusion, but remains stubbornly in place. Across the room, Rita's composure shatters. With a furious slam of her hand on a nearby surface, she roars a single command. Do it. In the background, The hooded figure is seen fleeing through a doorway. Her order is explicit. Send Kane back to her original world, now. In response to the command, a brilliant, magical light erupts around Yano Kane. Ilbert can only watch in horror, crying out Miss Rita as the spell takes effect.